In the shadows of our cyber defenses, a silent struggle is wreaking havoc. In the information security community, we're facing an epidemic that no firewall can block, a devastating surge in mental health struggles and substance abuse. The numbers are alarming. Security professionals are experiencing burnout, anxiety, and depression at unprecedented rates. Today on CounterSurveil, we're breaking through the silence. We're examining why our defenders are struggling, and more importantly, how we can build a stronger, healthier security community. Join us as we explore the human side of cybersecurity and discuss real solutions for real people. CounterSurveil. Because security starts with securing ourselves. Why do 90% of hackers swear by CounterSurveil? Let's dive in and find out. In the labyrinthine world of cyberspace, every click leaves a trace. But with CounterSurveil, you become the unseen. Our podcast takes you deep into the heart of hacking, where firewalls crumble and secrets unravel. From white hat heroes to shadowy code warriors, we cover the spectrum. Join us on Iron Geek, your portal to mastering the art of stealth and strategy. Discover the tools, the tricks, and the tales that define the modern hacker. Tune in and transform from a curious novice into a digital legend. This is CounterSurveil. Unmask the unknown.
Tune into the sound waves, secrets of the dark maze, dark codes in the nighttime, information, gold lines. We're free in the spotlight, chatting through the late night. Smart contracts are lying, auditing, they're defying. CounterSurveil in my ear, security we engineer. Learn the truth, don't disappear. CounterSurveil, we're right here. Crypto dreams and data streams. Listen close, it's closer than it seems. Fix the flaws, see through the smog. CounterSurveil, join the blog.
Hello and welcome to the CounterSurveil Podcast. I am one of your hosts here, along with Sledge, Altkey, CrowdStrong, and Dataplex today. We have a very important topic today, which is the mental health crisis in information security, what can be done about it, who's already out there on the front lines doing good work, and what you can do yourself to help. Feel free to chime in the comments today. We will showcase any comment that we want people to respond to. We got some whoop ninjas over here.
Whoop.
And very important topic. Rest in peace to our fallen bros. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why am I thinking 2600 when I hear this intro? Well, probably because we're tight with Lucky from 2600 and he's been on the cast.
Yep.
And also rest in peace, Aaron Swartz and all the others. Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. Big fan of Aaron Swartz, what he did both with Reddit, with RSS, and also trying to free all that data behind that paywall. I mean, that's a freaking legend out there. So this is a really complicated topic and a lot of things go into it. And I want to preface this with none of us are mental health professionals. Anything you hear here is not advice as far as professional mental health advice. Please, if you are having an issue, if you feel like you are in trouble, reach out to somebody who can help you. That's probably not us, but we will do our best to help if we can. So, Sledge,
mental health professionals are good contacts to have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And if you're going through something and this is triggering, we are perfectly fine with you letting us know. And we apologize if we happen to handle a topic maybe a little not so sensitively, or if our wording got lost in translation somewhere.
Fair enough. So a little background on myself. Many years ago, before I was involved in InfoSec, I did have a lot of mental health issues. I worked actually as a peer counselor at the Mental Health Association of Nassau County in New York for a number of years. I did help people as an employment specialist get employment, get back on their feet after prolonged periods of not working. And for me personally, one of the things that helped me through my mental health crisis was helping other people get through theirs. Learning the skills needed to help somebody else also taught me things that I could apply to myself so that I was better as well. So I think if we want to make ourselves better as a community, we can kind of take from that same mindset of, if I learn how to help somebody else, I also might learn how to help myself. So I think that's a good kind of kickoff. And CrowdStrong, I'm pretty sure you work for a nonprofit that helps people, not necessarily in the mental health space, but why don't you go a little bit about what you do?
So one of the many hats that I found myself wearing is my nonprofit deploys to places that have been hit with natural disasters, not unlike the North Carolina, Asheville, those folks. And most of what we do is provide communications and equipment for law enforcement, first responders, and people who are helping search and rescues and things like that. And we'll deploy and do all of that. We've done a couple of other things in the past, but that's kind of our main priority. Our main goal is to provide support and infrastructure for that kind of natural disaster a little faster than say what GEMA or the government could respond with.
Yep.
Wow, that's actually some pretty worthwhile freaking stuff you guys do. We should have had you come on as a guest just to talk about that, but you're a regular, so we'll have
That works, man.
touch base on that in another cast altogether. That sounds like a worthy thing to talk about, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Jake Newman here. I got put in the psych ward last month because I'm too elite. I don't ever want to go back. I've been in the psych ward a couple of times myself.
Like 10-13?
That's rough, buddy.
I got put on a 72-hour hold at DEF CON one year, but managed to talk myself out of it. So yeah.
Hackers, right?
There's a lot that goes into this community, why people have these issues, why people are attracted to this field of work, who tend to already have pre-existing conditions that can be exacerbated working the kind of shifts that people work in this industry, dealing with the kind of corporate stuff that you need to in order to survive.
Some of us are going to have shifts. It's like 24/7, it feels like.
I mean, I can tell you, when I was working in a SOC many years ago, it was extremely stressful to do the Panama schedule. The hours each week that I have to put in front of a computer. Some days I'd be in front of a computer 18 hours. And I mean, it's really tough to get good sleep when you're doing that. And I think sleep is also something that a lot of us neglect. There's a reason we have the 3-2-1 rule at DEF CON. Sledge, what's the 3-2-1 rule? You're on the spot.
3 hours of sleep. What is it? 2 showers, 1 deodorant, something like that.
I
One
thought
meal.
It was 3 meals, 2 meals, and 1 more meal.
Where's the 11s?
Where's the 11s?
So I believe it's 3 hours of sleep? That's not even enough, honestly. But 3 hours of sleep at a minimum, 2 meals, and a shower is, I believe, the way it is.
Yeah.
And OPSEC, not SLOPSEC.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So you're right about that. I'm no OPSEC expert, and I don't pretend to be. I mentored a few kiddos who really didn't think things through. That's alt key there, but the best we can do as professionals in the industry, and I hesitate to use the word professional at all, but is to pass on to the next generation what worked for us, what didn't, and make sure that we do our best to shelter them from the same bullshit we had to deal with.
Like, it's also important in my day job. I actually had a conversation about this earlier today with one of, I call them my kids. Some of them are my age, some of them are not. But they are the analysts younger than I am. It's really easy, especially in the SOC, to get burnout, man. And that takes a toll on the mental health. And the best thing that I've found, at least in my career and my experience, is just to be there for people, be that sounding board. But also, there are lots of other things you can do. It depends on how bad how far along the bad has gotten, the dark has come on. But I know in my career that I have also suffered a pretty serious burnout under 9 floors of hospital in what feels like a past life. I worked really, really, really hard for, 9, 10, 11 months, just on a doing a job that I didn't end up getting hired for, and it just I got glass ceiling pretty hard, and it took a lot. It really genuinely did, and the ultimately what ended up happening is I left. I went to DEF CON that year. It was I got told that I didn't get the job right the weekend before I left for DEF CON, and the business wouldn't send me because it wasn't relevant to them. They weren't InfoSec; they were just IT, and so they wouldn't send me to DEF CON. So I sent myself to DEF CON. So I went looking for a job, and I happened to have a friend of mine that I had met years prior doing the collegiate cyber defense competition that was at DEF CON. Shout out Phil. And he and I met, and he was looking for a junior analyst. And really, long story short, 4 or 5 months later, I was able to leave that place, and it did wonders for me. But it took getting to that point, really genuinely not thinking I was going to survive it if I didn't do something drastic to make me do. And I found a few times in my career I've gotten complacent. And I try to keep myself, aware of that as I go along. But man, be there for your people, because if you can create that air of trust, that web of trust, if you will, it's really, really good to be able to be there for other people, but also keep on top of yourself. Good friends are good to have, man.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that is if you overextend yourself too much, then you burn yourself out trying to help others. So you got to find a good balance there. That's
the keep on top of yourself part.
It's like when you're in an airplane, if the thing comes down, you got to put the mask on yourself before you put it on somebody else. Otherwise, you risk passing out yourself.
Yeah, that's correct.
So a lot of people in our industry also, when they do face mental health problems, they don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about it because of the stigma that's associated with having they've been hospitalized, having to be on medication. It's not something a lot of people are open about because they're afraid people are going to think I'm crazy. It might affect my ability to get a job in the future. It might cost me friends. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to change that stigma and kind of also understand that sometimes these things that other people perceive as weaknesses can be turned into strengths with time. Just like, coal turned into a diamond under enough pressure. Speaking about being under enough pressure, welcome, Delchai. How have you been, man? And we have silence.
It does not.
He's got to reboot his wheelchair.
Not rolling thunder.
Are you
there, Delchai?
Well, we'll come back to him. I'm sure he'll get his AV setup going.
We'll know when he's here.
Yep.
I do have a side tangent when we have a minute, but let's keep going with where you're rolling.
So the gist I'm trying to make is that the stigma that's associated with having a mental health problem or having a substance abuse problem, which oftentimes is co-occurring with a mental health problem. So a lot of the times it's not just that somebody all of a sudden develops alcoholism or that they develop a dependency to use a particular drug to get by, whether that be pot or something more serious like meth or MDMA or whatever the heck the drug of choice for the person is. A lot of times the reason they turn to that in the first place is because of the underlying stress and mental health problems that they've got and the fact that they don't have any legitimate outlet for them. And I
don't forget the more popular drugs too, like, caffeine.
We don't count that one.
It's just any
Call me out.
Call
me out.
When you see people, taking down 18 to 20 cans of Monster a day, their insides turn purple and they start peeing the Russian flag. It's it becomes an issue.
My
not to mention, a lot of people, and people don't think about this, but everyone grabs a Coke, right?
No.
All right. And then what happens after 10 years of that? You end up sitting there on the bench with Wilfred Brimley.
Oh,
diabetes.
Not the diabetes.
So, when you say drugs and drugs are a problem, it's true. But let me tell you something. Once you cross that big 4-0, you can't stay up 36 hours anymore on just Monster and Dominoes. And if you do, you end up, looking a little more rounded of a person than you ought to be. So, we used to joke about, joke cola, twice the sugar, all the caffeine, or twice the caffeine, all this. You can't just. I mean, I know plenty of people in the industry who, hoover up more cocaine than a drug dog at the LA airport. Sure. And, that only goes so far. And then you turn into redacted. But there are things you got to consider. A lot of times the drugs are done out of necessity because y'all getting old. You can't pull 36-hour shifts. You can't pull 22-hour shifts. I made the mistake last week of pulling a 19-hour shift. And the next day I was worth my weight in rubber dog shit.
Yeah, that's a good call out. The mental capacity as you get older and deal with this repetitively, especially if you're in the any kind of incident response or any kind of I call it like frontline work, right? Where you're dealing with that repetitively. Like, you take a 20-hour trip down there, and the recovery time as you get older is twice that, right?
That's if you get recovery time.
Yeah. For a lot of people, that leads to more serious health issues, with stroke and stuff like that even.
I mean, you gotta remind you, the last time I had a medical problem, I'm on the phone with my doctor, and I'm like, do I have to go to the ER or not? And meanwhile, my boss is on the other phone calling me a pussy.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about that. Another buddy relayed that he actually went to the ER thinking he was having a heart attack, and it was an anxiety attack. And his boss said, "You better get your, ASS back in the office today."
Yeah, been there. Yeah, but let's bring this back around. The point I want to make is, a lot of people suffering burnout and going through like super stressful situations, they turn to substance abuse just as a form of disassociation, a temporary form of relief or whatever. But over time, that can become a physical addiction, not necessarily a mental addiction, but either or, they're both bad. The physical one is worse because that'll put you in the hospital real quick.
Well, also, physical addiction will lead to mental addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. True, yeah.
When you start believing that you need that. And, there's one other thing I wanted to point out. You mentioned earlier, you don't talk about mental illness because you might lose your job opportunities. Big thing there. But then you mentioned you might lose friends. Okay, let me tell you something. This day and age, if you lose friends because you're honest about needing help with something,
they weren't
two things. Number one, you need new friends. Number two, they did you a favor by outing themselves, and you should drop kick them from the goalposts of life as close as possible.
Yep.
Soon as possible. Because there's just absolutely no point in maintaining toxic relationships like that. And I hate to use that phrase, but they're toxic to you.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Yep. You are correct.
There's a lot of research, and I dropped over here in the chat. I can't join the chat, the public chat, right? But talking about cortisol and dopamine in the brain, right? And things like incident response and first, PTSD from cybersecurity work ends up etching cortisol tolerances into the brain, right? Which over time leads to more negative outlooks on life, more depression and things like that, right? So I've done a lot of study on like mindfulness, talking about trying to turn those situations into more, it's hard because like in the hacker world and in any kind of cybersecurity, you have these massive rushes of dopamine and massive rushes of cortisol, and it's figuring out how to balance that and temper that in your brain, right? In some kind of way and have a support system.
Yeah. That explains why every now and then you find a pocket full of assholes in your friend circles.
Yeah, when it comes to cortisol also and stress hormones, I think there are things that can help with that outside of your traditional medication that oftentimes you're going to get prescribed if you go talk to a doctor about it. Things like, coping mechanisms, understanding your triggers, and also even changing your diet, adding more antioxidants, things like that can help a lot more than people realize.
But that's no excuse for having keeping a shitty job.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a comment in the public stuff. You got to switch jobs when you start staying in the parking lot up until 2 minutes before work starts, dreading the whole ordeal.
Yep.
Well, I got some news for you folks. I've been going through that for the last year, and the market is shit. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. You can be the most qualified, kick-ass person in the world, and if the AI bird shits on you, you don't get a new job. So there are people who have to put up with things that are absolutely just downright inhuman. And the thing is, you can't quit. You can't quit because you need a place to live. Mm-hmm. Okay, I quit one of the absolute best leading cyber companies. God save me for saying the word cyber, but that's how they describe themselves. So,
yeah,
yeah. Tell me about it. No, I quit one of the biggest, most popular, most famous companies, and I ended up living in my car because I couldn't. The money wasn't there. You can't just up and quit a job because it's too stressful or you have a shitty boss or what have you.
It's your livelihood.
You know what? Right now, people with marketable skills are lining up by the dozens just for any job. You watch, I know, God forbid I say this too, but LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is like FetLife for business. But the thing is, you see a job up on LinkedIn, and before you can hit refresh to reply to it, it's got 500 applications.
Let's not go off on a side tangent, but if anybody's listening, LinkedIn is actually pretty dope. I've gotten so many interviews through that I can't even keep up with it.
Okay. Now wipe off your chin.
This ain't working.
Wipe off your chin because that's probably how you're getting those interviews. I've
already accepted an offer, so I start next week.
Listen, it's the same game, right? That we've been playing for 20 years with Monster.com and all the iterations of it afterwards. Is like either use the system for your benefit or it plays against you. I've seen a lot of people that struggle to somebody else said in the chat, like adapting your skill set across that translates into other industries, and I think we're seeing a lot of that and a lot of uncertainty. And yet to kind of bring it back around, right? This is one of the things that's going to trigger a lot of people in this industry with mental health challenges in the coming years, right? We are going through transition, and tech industry historically has 5-year basically like we've solved a problem in this domain, and those people now go work in some other domain to solve problems in that space, and that leads to a lot of job loss and a lot of job necessarily like transition, right? But yeah, it is difficult. I've seen people that are, on LinkedIn, on all the job sites. I've seen phishing rampantly on there, right? Of people in this industry specifically. So it's also like a paranoid experience.
Security number over email.
Yeah. What do you mean a coding challenge on your platform where I have to install something out of your repo? Gosh, how desperate am I for this thing?
The other thing that hits hard in a market like this, in situations like this, it's kind of sort of preventable, but it's inevitable. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, oh my God, don't get me started.
Especially when you have abusive management and they feed into it by like, yeah, well, you're not going to get a job anywhere else, are you?
I have excellent
management. You're not gonna do it anywhere. You're lucky you're even here. You're lucky I even keep you around here. My favorite.
Constantly feel like the stupidest person in the room. Yeah.
It's like
if you feel the most competent person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You always got to surround yourself by smarter people.
But I'm always telling myself I suck in the bag.
My favorite one to date, which I hear on a weekly basis, is I have a list right here of reasons that I could fire you right now. Don't make me use it.
but that's just bad management.
Right. That I hear that at least twice a week.
Does good management exist?
I can confirm, and I would love to shout them out, but I can't tell you where I work. But
yeah, same. I would shout out a good manager myself.
Those dudes are the most based motherfuckers I've ever met in my life, genuinely, and I would go to the ends of the world for those dudes.
And my last job.
See this? Know your love.
It's rare we can actually honestly call your manager a friend. Like we go out, have whiskey and cigars.
Oh yeah,
every now and then. Like that's rare, but it was awesome.
Yeah, I've had 2 really good managers in my career within InfoSec. This guy Eric Stride, who I worked for when I was under him at Atlas, and then this other guy Jose, who I worked for many years ago at API Hotels. Both of them great bosses. They were supportive. They were there for you when you needed to talk, and they weren't judgmental. I think that's really rare nowadays, where you're going to get that kind of boss. Boss I've got now couldn't give a shit about anybody on his team. He's a selfish, kind of mean person to a lot of us. And hopefully he never sees this cast, but he definitely needs to work on his social skills because the things that he says to people on my team as well as myself, it really does have a detrimental effect on us. I was talking with one of my coworkers about how I've been grinding my teeth so badly due to the stress, mostly from him. And he said, "Oh my God, I have the same thing. I went to the dentist. They told me I have severe bruxism. I ground my teeth next to nothing. And I have to get implants." It's like both of us, same thing, just dealing with that stress, grinding our teeth over,
I have an appointment next week because I, over the holiday break, went through something and actually broke a filling out of my tooth, out of my molar.
All right, 3 stories real quick. I broke my heel bone this weekend, or last weekend. Another story, I'm getting a full mouth implant in the next couple of weeks or months.
Not a story. Hey,
and then the third, I was going to wrap it back around to my manager and how good he was, because there was a point in time where I was going through a divorce, and he's gone through a divorce too. So he actually took time out of his day outside of working business hours to just, sit down and just talk about it. That was really cool. And then they gave me a week off so I could just kind of sleep it off.
I've got that book around here somewhere.
So analysis paralysis, one of the people wanted to talk about in the chat. That's when you have essentially so much going on that you just can't make a decision. You're just kind of like, you kind of get into that state where it's really hard to move forward. Anybody ever deal with that here, where it's kind of like, my
flip a coin?
Oh my God. When I first started at InfoSec, I was working with a really jank version of logarithm and dark trace, and there was a lot that it was all noise. And even now where I'm at, there's so much noise, but we didn't really have a team at my old organization to, we didn't have content. We didn't have, it was just like out of the box stuff. And it was a mess. Of course, again, and I've said it a couple of times, it was me and a couple of other guys in a closet running socks. So, I think there were 8 or 9 people when I started, and we ended up with 100 and God, I can't remember how many after I left. That was the one you worked with me, Delchai. And even then, Delchai can confirm that place was a wreck on its own. But like, whew, there was just a lot going on. You see the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And you're
talking about Clown Shoes, right?
Yes, I'm talking about Clown. That place, yes.
Oh man, Clown Shoes was an artiste.
Oh, I was talking about the organization as a whole, not just him.
Well, the organization as a whole was a flush twice situation.
You might need the poop knife, but that's okay. That's all right, man. We survived it, right?
I mean, you need the poop stick for that place.
There you go.
So, oh God, we're beyond the knife. We're to the poop staff.
Here's another thing that I've been noticing in the industry lately. Like, we've all been pen testing for like a decade or so. And now that, let's say, you got laid off and now you're trying to get back in the industry, they've got a lot more buzzwords like red team, cloud security, yada, 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 that we don't have on paper because we never had to really deal with that. But we technically have. It's just not on paper. So trying to
Or
prioritize what certifications you want to get.
Buzzwords. Somebody invents a bunch
So
of new
it's like-
buzzwords and builds a certificate around it. So you have to have this certification for, left-handed orange team management queries, and you're like, what the fuck is that?
I'm gonna challenge that and say anybody that's like, and this is just, it is a reality out there, but and the jobs are there and they suck, where they gatekeep based on those parameters, right? And walking into there what you're walking into, which is not a culture of knowledge and education expertise, right? But desperation, essentially. And because the flip side of that is like, I've walked away from opportunities like that and paid for it, right? But also found opportunities where, hey, I demonstrate my skills and value as a contributor to the team, right? Or as a leader in
his
a
mic or me?
process. And it's probably me. Right. But basically, like, finding the right fit, even if it's like making that a reality, again, that's kind of that adaptability. Everybody that's had a day on the job has expertise that somebody else doesn't, right? And value that about yourself, and really, like, not that I suck at this, but hey, this is my expertise and this is where I want to go with it, right?
And if you need anything else, I'm willing to learn.
Yeah, because 20 years ago, none of this existed, right? So the first, group of us that went through that whole process, like, I didn't have anything to put on my resume except, like, I got in trouble in the 90s, and now I know how to do things that you are afraid of.
With me, it's like, I've got 500 pen tests under my belt, but you're talking about cloud. What do you mean? Do you mean IAM misconfigurations, or just doing like Active Directory in Azure? So they don't even know.
Yeah, did you see that new? We found a new vulnerability in IAM, and it was a big, huge 0-day blah 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 blah, and all it was a single line misconfiguration. It wasn't a zero anything.
Yeah,
I looked at it. I wrote about it. I said, this is nothing new. This is just a misconfiguration of an S3 bucket. It's like, I can do that standing on my head with 2 fingers up my ass.
Yeah, but I'm going to take it back, right? I'm going to rewind. Like, I'm going to go retro on you and say that's just an NFS share that's misconfigured for read write all. Like,
wow.
It's all the same. It's just replaying, and it's okay, right? My first actual paid engagement in cybersecurity was in 2001. So that.
Oh, you got me beat by 5 years.
Yeah.
Please stop, Jake.
It didn't exist, right? So it was more like secure programming consulting, right, at that time. And then it went into, I went application security, right? But you split into network and all that. So I think it's just an evolution of your skill set, right? Yeah, and that's a great resource there.
But back to that, that analysis, whatever it was called.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah, analysis paralysis. My point was, like, when you're in this situation where people want something from you, how do you prioritize? Because you only have X amount of time, right? Let's say they want you to know 2 things, but you don't have it on paper. So, for instance, you want to get the CRTO for Red Team, or go get a cloud certification or something.
I'm gonna throw this out there. Can I throw out one idea and get some feedback on it? And it's that I've always tried to have like a 1, 3, and 5 year plan, right? Just on an index card, 1, 3, 5, and basically, like, I compare those analysis situations. Like, is this getting me closer to that goal or further away? And is that goal still relevant for me? Because, like, if I don't have kind of a North Star on some of this stuff, it's real easy to just start spinning out of control on it.
Yeah, well, these days, that card has 1 word on it: survive.
Yep.
That's my 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and 5 year plan.
I was coming at it from the perspective of, hey, this needs to happen now. I need a job now. So, like, which ones can I knock out real quick?
Yeah, man. I mean,
there's a reason why people are quitting tech and going out to the barn to raise chickens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm not even exaggerating. I know at least 3 people who've done that.
Working on my plan every day.
I mean, I miss Hackers on a Farm, which was something that some people in Louisville used to do.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking about like walk away from technology altogether. They literally one guy told me that 10 years in InfoSec trained him to be perfect at shoveling chicken shit. And
checks out.
Literally, he raises chickens now.
Yeah,
that
tracks.
works.
Yeah.
Data said something a moment ago, talking about kind of going back a few minutes. Talked about people, and it kind of spurred a thought. Everybody you work with and everybody you meet, even those that aren't of real assistance to you, can teach you something. And back to the conversation I had earlier with my kid, we have a guy that I'm working with now that is technologically brilliant. He's real smart. He's young, and he's not experienced and doesn't understand what teamwork is. So he likes to come in and kind of steal the show from everybody else and thinks it's him and is his own brick wall, right? So in what we were discussing today, me and my kid, for lack of a better term, I don't want to use names. We learned two things from him. We learned how to take control of a room, and we learned how not to treat people. Every tool bag has something useful in it. And that is something that you can take from anybody. Everybody has something to teach you. You just have to find what it is.
Yep.
And sometimes, unfortunately, the thing that somebody's going to teach you is what not to do and how not to act.
Some
lot of the way we learn.
cautionary.
Yeah.
Some lives are cautionary. His is absolutely.
I look at that from two directions now as I'm getting older in the industry, right? And looking at the generation that's coming behind us that's fully digitally connected, right, from the start. I still like to hang out in person and look people in the eye, right? Eye contact is something that's changing over time. But, like, how do I take my experience and my traumas and turn that into positive experiences for the next group of people entering this industry, right? Or, say, hey, this is not the way to get into this. Maybe pivoting a little bit, right? But to be a developer versus a cybersecurity engineer versus a pen tester versus a red team or purple teamer, right? Like, these are all shifting kind of waves in the tech ocean. Getting a little metaphoric there, but right. Which, if the wave's not working for you or you didn't catch it, right? Like, look for the next one or make the next one. Because it's all, this is a 30-year-old industry at best. So we're babies in terms of like the overall like economic growth engine that drives this whole thing. So went off on a tangent there a little bit, but
good tangent.
I look more to like, how do I take a bad situation and turn it into an opportunity to be a leader in that situation, right? Based on helping somebody else navigate that bad situation for positive gain. Like, hey man, you may be getting fired today because of that incident, but here's what we're going to learn in the period that we have left to learn something about that.
Yep. And then if we want to keep going down tangents or pull it back to mental health, I'll start saying something like, to your point, like, that's kind of one of the reasons DEF CON exists, so we can all meet each other in person. And that's a huge networking opportunity. And in my experience, that's been the best way of just learning, growing, getting jobs, all that stuff. Just networking, meeting people. But the problem with DEF CON, though, to bring it back to the main point, is everyone glamorizes substance abuse.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly encouraged to go drinking with everybody, and people joke about, how much pot they smoke and all this kind of stuff. Drug culture is fairly prevalent at DEF CON. It's not necessarily looked down on like it might be in some other industries. And InfoSec in general,
it's kind of expected.
Yeah, I don't know a single industry that does not go out and get fucked up during a convention. Yeah, I don't care if it's farm equipment, construction equipment, hackers, grain feeders, pencil pushers.
I'm going to say that
they all come to Vegas, they all get fucked up, and they all do stupid shit. The focus that, DEF CON is this and DEF CON is that, people forget the human condition, okay? You get a bunch of D&D players together, you're going to have the same thing, and you're going to have at DEF CON. I live in Vegas. And back when I was out in, cruising the bars and doing the fun shit, right? Every time a convention would come into town, there would be somebody liquored up with a lampshade on their head running around with their dick hanging out. It happens. It's not unique to DEF CON. The drug use,
I get you.
The alcohol, but the thing is, too many people think that. They think, oh, hackers are just a bunch of drug use. No, they're a bunch of human beings.
That's not necessarily my point.
Flyover country. They came to Vegas. They see a pair of nipples for the first time, and they go nuts.
My point, though, is yes, let's let loose in Vegas, get fucked up, go crazy. That's fine. But for a lot of people, they take that home with them and make it a daily thing and become
that's a you problem.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you have that problem, you're going to have that problem no matter where you go. It's not unique to hacking. It's not unique to Vegas. It's not.
I'll say, so hold on. I'm gonna say this though. Our industry, probably it depends on what area of the industry you're in, right? If you're a defense contractor, you're probably a little bit more on the alcohol side, right? And some of the other industries maybe a little bit more on the side dishes side of things. But by and large, like other industries where you're licensed or you're certified, right, and you may lose that based on like an expectation of passing those tests, right? They get weeded out a lot faster, and I think tech workers get overlooked, and so like it entrenches itself in people a lot harder here.
Yeah,
right?
There are so many ways to get around that, and so few people who actually end up going to these things. That I mean, it's just you can't. I've worked in some pretty sensitive environments, okay, and I've worked with people. They don't do drugs; they make their own drugs. Okay, they go home and they pull out their Play-Doh fuzzy pumper drug set and they make their own MDMA. They make their own LSD, and they suck it down and watch Carl Sagan videos, and then go back to work the next day. The thing is that I hear all of these things about DEF CON. People still blame DEF CON for the local Vegas criminals that hang out in the casinos and prey.
I don't see DEF CON that. Yeah, I don't see it that way anymore, though, right? And I'm choosing to not have that description of it. I don't think that's what it's about anymore. Maybe started there. But I'll say this, man, my accountant girlfriend has never once come to being like, man, I could really use a gallon of whiskey after today. It was real tough filing tax reports, man. Like,
yeah.
Versus I used some to have Jack Daniels in the IV bottle. I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I've hit it heavy like that before too, right? And it was all like a result of basically like ongoing trauma work that I was doing that I didn't realize was trauma work at the time.
Yeah,
vodka and the Camelback,
the good old desk flask.
Yeah,
a lot of us that come back from the Pool 2 era. Well, we were young people in a young industry doing young people stuff.
I'll say this though, right? That those industries that have these issues, dentists, right, nurses, doctors, heavy prevalence, the same thing, right? They also take care of their own people in their industry by having outreach and conversations about these topics. We're not saying that like that everybody's perfect or that there's not going to be tomorrow, right? Any kind of mental health issues. It's just a reminder that, hey, if there is something that you're going through, other people have gone through that too, right? And reach out and get the help to come back healthy as part of this community that's going to be able to take that expertise and that experience and do something good for people.
But part of that, in the healthcare industry at least, I can tell you that some people are afraid to talk about it because while your health care provider, your insurance may provide mental health services, there are some things that you see or you run across or whatever that if you haven't been in the healthcare industry or around it or close enough to be, there's some fucked up shit, dude. You see some real bad things, and like that'll do some stuff, not great stuff to a person. And some people are afraid of going and talking to a therapist or whatever based on their healthcare because health insurance, based on concern for that getting back to their management or whatever. So they do drugs to try and
you know what's funny is that was one of the reasons why EAP was born. EAP was born because of that very issue. Because you go to a shrink, you go to a psychiatrist, psychologist, it's going to light up more red flags than you can imagine. You go to EAP and they go, oh, well, that's just, you're not having a good day, or you need somebody to talk. It doesn't carry the same stigma. And a lot of people I know went the EAP route to get their shit taken care of.
Yeah, if your company offers EAP, that's a good thing to take advantage of when you need it. I've used it myself. I think they gave me 4 therapy sessions when my regular health insurance wouldn't cover therapy, which was useful to me at the time.
The thing is, at the end of the day, we're in an industry that produces this kind of problem. Okay, we it's not like we go in there and we have bad lives. We go into an industry that destroys our lives. And how we choose to cope with it and how we choose to deal with it doesn't change the fact that we go into an industry that's destroying our lives. And we don't all have the fortune to have a good boss or a good job or a good scenario. Yeah. There was a time when I was working a job where I had literally 2 hours to myself a day. By the time I would get up in the morning at, pre-dawn, drive down to the train station, get on the train, fuck around on the train for 2 hours, walk the rest of the way to work my job, do the same thing in reverse. And by the time I got home and shut the door and put my bag down, I had exactly 2 hours before I had to sleep, if I wanted 8 hours of sleep before I had to do it again. And sometimes you have to do that, because there aren't any other jobs. You have to. You're being forced to destroy yourself. And
I would also say that
it's part of the game. They'll tell you it's part of the game.
It's important to have like a good friend circle to where you can, vent and just get things off your chest. It's basically therapy, especially when your friend knows who you are, knows where you're coming from. That's always really good to have in your circle.
I want to chime in there one real quick, Delsey, and then get your feedback on this one, right? But that's kind of where my experience, man. If you'd told me back in 1998 when I got into this that it was going to be basically like I would be comparing myself to a fighter, right? But the building's digital, right? The flames are real. Everything about the rest of that is real, right? I don't like to compare myself to like police, where people are getting shot and things like that. But man, depending on what side of that I'm on too, right? I might be on the defender side, man. I got into this early on because I thought computers were cool. And then I realized nobody else understands the ramifications of what they're doing, right? And I take that as kind of I'm proud to be a defender today, man. I protect people from a lot of the bad shit that's out there. And today,
especially when you have a good win.
Yeah, man. When you have a great win, it's like, yes, right? And that's what I do it for. I take all that stress on. And I've really had to change my outlook on it. I know more today to tell people, if you're going into cybersecurity, have those mental health resources available, have that plan available, right? Have your health check ready, and man, get ready, to if you're in a position where it's not working, do everything you possibly can to get out of that situation, But if you're in this for the protecting people who don't understand what the cyber world is all about right now, it's going to be rough days, right? And I'm okay with that today. We come out of it stronger.
It's also kind of like, if you don't have the passion for it, you're going to get burned out really easy versus if you just treat it as a job.
Sure. I think to get further, and that's what I always look for, but you have to love it. You have to love what you do, and understand that it does come with, it's not perfect. It does come with its own number of setbacks and things that will take a toll on you. But shielding somebody from the bad is always going to do that. It doesn't matter if it's a job or not.
Absolutely. Jake is here from the comments. Hey, Jake, welcome.
What's up, comment, Jake?
We can't hear you, Jake.
Hey,
mute,
Jake.
Sorry,
You're
I
not
was
State
muted.
Farm,
There
are
you
you?
go.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Thanks for having me on. I think the topic you're discussing today is important and not discussed enough. So I'm looking forward to throwing it down with you all.
Let's go.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. So, yeah,
should we open up the floor for Jake?
Yeah, Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
What's on your mind? Yeah.
Oh, sure, for sure. So Jake Newman's my alias, just my hacker handle, as it were. My real name's Alex Hyde. Spent the last 15 years within InfoSec, web application pen testing for the most part, malware analysis, just the whole gauntlet. Dabbled in a bit of everything. Spent the last 10 years at a startup in New York City, and now I'm basically a freelance consultant. And hearing just hearing the mental health concerns, I quite literally thought I was going crazy at this last place, and it wasn't just me. There were a lot of other people too who would leave, and I thought it was just maybe there's something wrong with this company, but it seems to be an industry-wide epidemic.
Yeah. Depends on how large the company is, I've noticed.
Yeah, this was just a smallish startup. I would say not a mid-sized startup. Startup. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out there something that I noticed, and this took me a long time to realize, right? But like when you go into cybersecurity and you go into a company to take that role on, you basically walk day one into the closet full of bodies, right?
Yeah.
Our job is to find all of those things, and then you're like, nobody else understands this is here. This is fine, right? It's and then you basically have to make a determination of whether or not you think you could be successful in protecting that or making it better, and that's a heavy burden, right?
Or try to, and if you get failed, and if you fail, get the senior leadership team coming down on you.
Yeah, right. And knowing that we're going to be the scapegoats for that when it fails, because they make bad decisions about that stuff.
I've always referred to the CISO seat as the crown of basically the throne of thorns. You know,
if you're okay for getting paid for 3 years to basically sit on an airbag that at any point in time could go boom, you're ready to be a CISO.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a stressful position to be in. I CISO for a nonprofit on top of my day job, and just dealing with some of the nonsense that will come up from people trying to pop our crappy website to actual threat actors who are trying to do bad things to the people in the organization because they don't agree with them ideologically. It's a very stressful position to be in, and I can only imagine how stressful it would be if you're in like a Fortune 500 or 100 company as a CISO. And in that position, you also don't have the ability to really have the coworkers who you'd be able to confide in, because you're in that position of authority where it's very difficult to be able to also form friendships with people. And,
if you show any weakness confiding in somebody, it's not good.
I'd like to add to the friendship part. So one of the things I've noticed in the industry, especially if you're at a company with a lot of high turnover, after a while, you don't want to make friends because you know that they might not be there, you might not be there. It's kind of like making friends on death row. That's the way I've kind of felt with it. You know, your cellmates.
I had a situation like that once, many years ago. It was post 9/11, and the company I worked for went through a series of layoffs because everything went to hell after 9/11. And I went from being a little SOC person to being the catch-all person for everything. I instantly became an email admin, a PBX admin. I mean, this is back in the days when a PBX was a box the size of a refrigerator. I'm not talking about Asterisk. You know, you put a serial terminal on it.
Switching the Palisades.
The keyboard. And my job was to go out and cultivate all the emails from people that weren't coming back because they died in the towers. Then I had to go through their
Oh boy,
that's heavy.
Then I had to go through their voicemail and annotate all their voicemails that they weren't going to return because they weren't coming back. Then I had to reprogram the PBX and to handle that. And then I had to make the reports for this, and I had to collect all their gear, mirror the drives, reissue things, stuff like that. And at the end of it all, they started having layoffs. And people were not kind to me during that process.
And people try to give you guff about feeling low about it. It's like, hey, you just work with computers. You got the easy job.
And I never even considered.
The funny thing was, when we started having layoffs, a lot of the people that gave me guff got laid off. And they brought in a grief counselor. And the grief counselor sat down with us and said, so, how do you feel about this? And I said, well, I have a problem. And they said, well, what's your problem? And I said, I don't feel bad about it at all. I said, we're laying off and getting rid of people that have treated me like shit. So I want to fucking party that these people are gone. And yeah, I'm surrounded by people who I know they're not going to find a job. They're not going to be able to survive. They're assholes, but I don't want to see them on death row.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm conflicted in how I feel, because on the one hand, I don't have to deal with them anymore. On the other hand, we're condemning them to hell. And I don't know how to deal with that.
Well, are there any of those people that in modern day you would work with again?
Oh, not if I could avoid it.
Just goes to show you, people don't change. Okay, continue.
The thing is, for my trouble, I got written up by HR.
Oh Lord!
Oh God!
Yeah. They asked us, no judgment,
on that
no
one.
trouble, just tell us how you feel.
Maybe you
And
should
I
eat some
told them
fucking
how I
soap and
felt.
clean up your goddamn language.
Oh, my language
Man.
wasn't even a third of my problem.
Here's the reality. Like, at any given time, man, I've been that asshole, and I've been on the end of the stick to be swinging the stick at some people, right? And I have to say that, like, both perspectives, unfortunately, are valid, and they both potentially suck on any given Sunday, right?
Yeah, two things can be true at once.
It's never valid to just be a generic asshole, just to walk in there and be a dick about everything.
Man,
if you're not doing your job and you get beat up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. If you just walk in there and go, huh, you're a what? Yeah, I don't like your kind of people. Or you're shut up and fix my computer.
Well, man, I'm going to say
that's
that,
one
like,
of my favorite lines. Shut up and fix my computer.
I've said some really horrendous shit in the middle of a crisis situation when I was unprepared to handle that.
Situation, all bets are off. I used to work with a guy that was so bad.
Who am I to say when your crisis situation is happening in your life, man?
Yep.
And that's really, I think, what that boils down to for me is my experience. Like, if somebody's doing that, I need to be like, man, what's going on in your life? Let's sit down and talk about that for a minute.
That's
let's go have a beer.
Asshole.
Oh, there you go. Have a beer.
Yep.
And anyone's like, I don't want to have a beer with you. Well, you're the problem.
It comes down to that conundrum.
Yeah,
I'm trying to bring up.
I would rather drink hemlock than a beer with you. Okay,
Gentlemen, look who it is.
The beer is
I'll give you some Malort.
It turns out
an icebreaker, right?
on Monday nights for an hour, I spend on podcasts instead of drinking after DEF CON last year, man. So that I've been super proud to be part of this community and this venture here.
Oh shit! Which podcast?
It's an evolution. I mean,
that's a lot healthier to do podcasts and drink booze for sure.
Or you could be like me and doing both.
I've been going to DEF CON since in the single digits. Okay, so I am not going to say I'm an angel. I went to DEF CON and got fucked up and hung from the ceiling and did things that may or may not should have been done. Okay, but I mean, they were always in the spirit of hacking. Don't get me wrong. I went into some unauthorized places and I did some things and I pushed some buttons that maybe shouldn't have been pushed. And I did my share
Educational and
of
research purposes only.
drinking and carrying on, but the thing is that as time passed, that really mellowed out. And now I see a next generation of people coming in and they're doing that. And I'm like, damn, I'm jealous. I remember what it was like to take a laser pointer and draw dicks on the wall.
I mean, no, I've never done that.
I've been going for 14 years and I've only had the cops called on twice.
I threw a party at the Luxor one year that spilled out from my suite into the hallway. And I had to leave my suite to go DJ. And there were literally people in the hallway, half naked, spraying whipped cream on each other.
That sounds right.
And I was like, I kind of miss that in a way. But at the same time, I also like being able to go and learn something and do something and, pick up.
I just want to talk to people. Like, I hate it when the fucking party is so loud you can't hear anybody. I just want to sit down and talk.
Well,
that's why I like
kind
the
of
circle
the definition of a party. I mean, if you want a party, go to a party. If you want to sit around and talk to someone, go to a lounge.
back plenty of chill out lounges at that time for sure.
Bar.
Yeah.
Guys, we have
piano bar and sit there and listen to the guy play Billy Joel songs and then talk about stuff. And you go to a party, it's going to be a party. You can't become your parents.
We've got both Adrian Crenshaw and
we have someone from the new era.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say the other person's name, but somebody else has been on the cast before here. Adrian, nice to see you, man. It's been a while.
How's it going? I saw the name and I decided to pop on. And Delchi, I would say about as far as parties at DEF CON, I get the impression they're not as wild now as they used to be. I remember there used to be the Hacker Pimps party where they had strippers and such. That was pretty fun. But I think they stopped that because of political correctness.
Oh, they got SJW'd out, just like Vinyl Vanna.
Darn it, I missed the strippers, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even Hacker Jeopardy's no fun anymore.
The thing is that SJW had its day, and it took out a lot of things, and some for the better, some not for the better. But yeah, you're not going to see that anymore.
I think
you're not going to see that anymore.
Vegas is a place where you could go find and plan your own experience. It depends on how determined you are to have that experience there, right?
It used to be easier and cheaper.
Yeah.
It's cheaper.
Jake, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Yeah, get off of my digital lawn.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was muted, guys. Sorry. I was just saying, DEF CON, it's like they say at DEF CON 101. It's what you make it. It's up to you.
I have come to really, really hate that phrase because it's most commonly used against people who just say anything. It's what you make it. Oh, I don't like it because this bad thing happened. Well, it's what you make of it.
Well, I got anal prolapse. Well, it's what you make it.
Yeah, you just gotta. How do you make of it?
For an hour. I got stuck in an elevator for an hour. Well, DEF CON's what you make it. What does that have to do with being stuck in an elevator? The escalators don't work.
Hey, you get a cool story out of that.
If
my friend Malcolm fell down the stairs.
That lecture sucked. Okay, yeah, I understand using that phrase. Okay,
but that phrase to me, I interpret it as don't go see a talk. Never. You're there to meet people. The talk's gonna be online later.
Yeah, all the talks are online. Just watch them after. Go hang out with people.
Yeah,
I mean, it is what you make it is like hack the planet.
You come there to hang out with people. Hang out with people. There used to be a great comparison. People go to DEF CON for talks like people read Playboy for the articles.
I like that.
Hey, they got some good recipes in those books, those magazines.
And it's just, the thing is that if you want to go there for talks, go there for talks. If you want to hang out and meet people, go there and hang out and meet people.
Exactly.
The thing
you make it
that
what you want.
You make it thing. The what you make it thing is overused. I mean, there's some great times when it needs to be used, and there's some great times where it needs to be listened to because change has to happen. Okay, but sometimes it gets overused, and if anybody complains about anything, they get that thrown in their face, and it's like, no, we got to find a better answer. There's got to be a better answer.
People seem to enjoy banging my cock this year. That was funny.
That was fun.
And so you broke the hammer.
Yeah. TSA broke it.
Yes, that means
there was one year.
That's like hammer time stop. That's a.
There was one year I was at a party, and I was dancing to the Goon Band, which I thought was pretty cool. It's always been cool. And I fell down on the floor. And a couple people tried to help me up. And somebody else came along and using paracord, triple wrapped, tied a 1.5 foot long purple jelly dildo to my belt.
Nice.
To the belt loop on my pants. And of course, I had already been swept clean, so I didn't have a knife or a blade or anything I could possibly have on me. So I'm walking around DEF CON with this giant purple dong, up against my leg, just bang, bang. And people were laughing. So finally I decided to go out to my car where I knew I had a Leatherman, that I could cut this thing off with. Funny thing happened. About halfway to the door to get to the parking lot, I got accosted by a group of people that started screaming, "Look at the example of the patriarchy. You're ruining the world for everyone. You're ruining
that actually happened?
for everyone. Why do you hate women so much?" And they did not want to hear that somebody had tied this thing to me as a prank. They didn't want to hear it. They followed me all the way to the door, screaming.
Those people aren't hackers.
Well, no, the thing is that this happened, and it's like,
Should have told them it's what you make of it.
There used to be a time where a prank like that would be funny, and now it's like, "Oh, you're a horrible person." I'm like, "No, the horrible person did this to me." So things change. One thing I said, and don't get me wrong, I love Hacker Summer Camp. But I said Hacker Summer Camp has evolved in the exact opposite way that Chuck E. Cheese has evolved. Now, Chuck E. Cheese used to be a place
more or less kids
for a pizza party. Now, Chuck E. Cheese is a place where adults go to get drunk and fight. Well, DEF CON used to be a place for hackers to go to get drunk and hack, and now it's a place to bring your kids for a pizza party.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
are we our parents now? Is that like where we're going with that?
You know what? It's not that maybe that's not such a bad thing, but it is an evolution, and you got to realize that evolution is going to happen no matter what.
Well, the sad part is like, but there's a good part of us in this chat that are now paid to fight against the things that we, heralded back then. It's a real weird paradox about where our income and our opportunities come from, and what that means for the generation that's coming around to hack the planet. At the next summer camp.
Look, there was a time where you could run down the hallway in your underwear screaming "Hack the planet" with root code written on your chest in Sharpie, and you wouldn't have to worry about losing your job. That ship has sailed. Okay.
So many stories regarding that.
Now, the next time I see you, you'll be at McDonald's.
So, y'all, we want to bring on Cameron and put him on the spotlight?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Sure.
I would just like to note that we also have somebody from the younger area, or the younger time frame here as well. Rap God is here with us. I would like to bring him up later.
We have a kiddo.
Rap God came on first, right? Who was first?
Yeah, Rap God was technically here first.
Yeah, I think I was here first.
Let me undo that then. 1 second.
Sorry about that, Cameron. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for being patient and hanging out and listening to us ramble.
All good.
Rabble.
There we go. Mr. Rap God, why don't you go ahead?
So obviously, as Ben said, I'm the younger generation. I'm currently still in college, debating that decision to start with, but obviously only had a couple internships involved into the cybersecurity realm. Started in marketing as a freshman, slowly moved into InfoSec last summer, looking to stay in InfoSec and kind of switch sides this summer, switching from like a Fortune 500 company to a private consulting company. So obviously mental health was kind of the topic I've been hearing so far today, and I haven't really had a super ton experience in terms of work environment, except for a really great one that I can't really say anything poorly about. I had a great experience last summer working. So
cool.
Yeah, that's kind of my background.
You said you want to switch sides. What did you mean by that?
So I was in a SOC last summer. Got some great advice, met some great people. Currently working on like my Security Plus because I feel like last summer they gave me like the educational benefit of being able to go get that this year during school.
Yeah, that's a legit one.
Yeah, it was great, but obviously like dealing with firewall rules is a lot different than trying to get around a firewall. And my aspirations, and especially I think my generation, we go into the workforce with a mindset that you have to go above and beyond what's already there. So like for me, I really love like what you consider the blue team. But like at the end of the day, I'd love to be in like the purple side, being able to understand like both penetration side and defense side.
Because you can't defend if you don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
That's right.
Right.
Take this a different direction and say, like, do you have mentors in your life that can help guide you along that career path about whether you're in a good environment that's on your track, or that's like, you know, helping you see your blind spots and push you harder in those areas?
I do. I'd say one of them's definitely on this call right now. It's kind of how I ended up here.
That's so sweet. Oh my God.
I do have the opportunity to come from a family that is very, very involved in cyber. Different stages of cyber, especially. I kind of have a lot of opportunities around me in terms of knowledge. Like for me right now, a huge decision I recently made was, do I go get the master's degree in cybersecurity to check a box, or do I continue to, you know, try to make a name for myself, like coming straight out of college and working?
Do what you want, but college in this realm is kind of useless.
Yeah, I'd agree with that until you want to take a leap or a bound and try to go somewhere you're not supposed to go.
Just get a bachelor's and call it a day.
Do you think that's the case in 2025? Because there are a bunch of universities now that have all sorts of InfoSec curriculums that did not exist 10 years ago.
So you want to hear something?
When I
really
went to
funny
college,
about that?
I went to school for network security in 2009, and there were 2 colleges that had it. And that bachelor's, yeah, it looks good on a resume.
Well, hold on. He was about to jump in there with some. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like I said, start studying for the Security Plus, and you can call me out if my definition's wrong. But my teacher in class, I'm in a cyber threat intelligence class, is like my only curriculum. I'm a management information systems major, so not computer science, not cybersecurity specific, kind of the business computer science side. And I go into class the first day, and my teacher, he gets asked, he's explaining what a DDoS attack is, and he has like a picture of obviously like a threat actor's computer, and he has some zombies' computers, and then he has like a web server. And a student asks him just a simple question or his question is from the perspective of that threat actor has taken control of computers in a company already. And the teacher doesn't understand the curriculum enough to understand that those zombie computers don't initially mean that your company's already been compromised. Normally, those computers could be a library, it could be your personal device, my personal device. It's not exactly already meaning that there's been some type of vulnerability exploited.
It's like having a gym teacher teach sex ed who's never gotten laid.
Yeah.
I mean,
brilliant.
Oh, man. I would say if I could go back on the college path, right? Because I initially started comp sci and I actually switched to MIS. And I dropped out because I started a consulting company, but that was back in 2001. I guess 2003 is when I formed my company and took contract work for the first time, legitimately. But I would say like focus on like, I like to say like tangible goods, right? Tangible industry, and or math, right? So comp sci right now, I think in college is behind, and it's churning out cookie cutter developers that don't have real world experience. So anything you could do going into the industry to follow passion or follow up network connections that you have a plus, but basing your like degree path on things that translate well into other use cases, so math, legal, those kinds of, core skills. Because if you're passionate about this and you're in cybersecurity, you probably already have the majority of the skills or the drive you need to succeed on that path, right? Understanding the business aspects or what really like you can now diversify your interest in this industry into really specific niches where we need people to kind of drive those changes in those areas.
So the passion part is important because you should be having your own projects outside of school that you're working on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're going to have a hard time explaining why you don't have a home lab in the future.
Yeah.
And if you don't have any at the moment, find some. Not too late. There's all sorts of stuff that needs to be poked and prodded at, and a lot of people don't. They might have an idea and not pursue it because they're like, "Oh, I'm thinking about it, there's someone else doing it." Chances are there's not. You'd be surprised.
And who cares? Reinvent the wheel. Learn something from trying it yourself.
Collaborate, expand, iterate.
Do it anyways. Like if someone else has done it, do it anyways or automate it. One of my earliest
I want to throw in a word of caution, especially since mental health is a topic today. Exactly what you're talking about is something that I have done, and it is a great way to burn you flat the fuck out. So
I can see that. Yeah.
You need to really pay attention to yourself and hold boundaries, because it's really easy.
You gotta have that work-life balance
sucked away. Because
I would say it's the end goal.
I used to just do it for hours and hours and days at end, and like my hips now hurt because I sat for too fucking long without getting up and moving. Right, so like. That's a literal thing. I have snapping hip syndrome, which I developed from sitting on my ass for too long. Like you have to put boundaries in place, and it's especially difficult for me because of my diagnosis. But it is inherently important, especially if you want to make it long term. That's all I have. Thanks.
I
want to ask real quick. Sorry, Sledge, but I want to pivot back to Rap God and say, like, from your perspective, coming into that industry, and then you said you've got resources around you, right? What are your peers doing in respect to establishing those boundaries? Is that something that's talked about now in your coursework, right?
You're referring to like work-life balance, like boundaries?
Yeah. How do you have passion without burning out while still getting ahead in the industry while, maintaining good, healthy social networks and moving ahead in your career, right?
So,
it's a complex topic.
All the puzzle pieces.
I did have the opportunity to come in as a marketing. So originally I started marketing for a startup store platform that sold. I went to an AI security platform, which I had to stop working for to do my internship past summer. And then now I'm working for a ransomware startup company. And I'll say that like I've studied for 2 certificates now. I got my AWS Cloud Practitioner my sophomore year with a full course load. And now this semester with a full course load, I'm going to try to get my Security Plus. And like to get back to like the burnout, at the end of the day, it's like it feels as if you kind of have to put yourself out here for a couple years and really like put the time in to earn a spot at the table right now. Obviously we live with like the idea that like it is really hard to get a job after college, and they market that to like the full extent. And I think that's like the biggest stigma that I've experienced so far in terms of like burnout and having to like put myself forward so that I can have the opportunity to go work somewhere.
And what I hear is the dangerous line that I've walked with passion invested into things that ultimately maybe didn't pay off, or like I felt, I heard you say like you feel that's like a requirement early on, right? And I'll say personally, like that ruined my first marriage. I chose the job over my family, right? And I didn't have good guidance on that, right? And that led to the whole previous hour's conversation for me, where it's like set good boundaries and have those goals where like, okay, you want that certification, like put a schedule down on it, right? going to spend an hour or 2 hours every week studying towards this, and here's when I'm going to take that test, right? So
time management is important, especially when you have a family.
Yep, exactly. Almost impossible when you have a family to also then have side projects and have that outside passion. I mean, if you want to spend any time with them, that is. And we have a question from I am Logic 83 here. AI security. Let's talk about that. You had mentioned you worked for a company that did that. I think he's interested in what you did.
So I don't know what I'm allowed to say. That was probably the company I worked with for the shortest amount of time, just because that internship ended because I started a new one. It was last year, my sophomore year, and basically what the company was attempting to do was it was one of those companies that just like as soon as AI the name took off, it was there. The technology behind it, it was more focused on like a consulting than like a software company at that point. It was kind of trying to get its name into working with other like AI focused startups, kind of consulting. I know a lot of the guys that I worked with, I know more about them than the product itself because now they have a product. But it was a lot of guys, ex-government, pen testers who were basically what they were selling while I was there is they were going to go in and break your AI for you. Whether that was through prompts,
good old grandma,
like vulnerabilities. That was kind of the idea behind that company. And since then, they've totally ditched that idea, and I have no clue what they're working on now.
So was the idea to like get it to say something it shouldn't, or expose biases, or?
So it was, I know. So I was on the marketing side, so I didn't do a ton of the technical work, but I do know the technical work that they were doing is companies that had their own AI kind of for internal use. That was the AI they were focusing on. So they were kind of trying to get some like PII from the AI, make it say something that could get it in trouble, someone in trouble, seeing what prompts it could get to spit out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was around like the guardrails of the AI. Yeah, I Am Logic had a few other questions. You wanted to know if you signed an NDA, the name of the software, was it vaporware? Got it? ? Feel free not to answer anything that you don't feel comfortable answering. Just I
mean, most companies
cannot confirm or deny.
Yeah, most companies I've worked at have had me sign some piece of legal paper, so that's kind of why I'm shying away from the name and too many specifics.
Well, you're using a fake name and yada yada, so you could just say.
No, he's actually
as long as you don't say client names.
Nope. Nope. Leave that where it's at.
Yeah.
A good first resource entering this field is a decent and semi-cheap but worth their money lawyer to bounce questions just like that off of.
Mm-hmm.
Worth their weight in. I can't throw them that far, but they'll probably keep me out of jail.
I just re-upped mine.
So redirecting the conversation a little bit back to mental health and substance abuse specifically, a lot of people in our industry have had to deal with those two specific things. I think alcohol abuse is very prevalent among people in the InfoSec community. It can be very hard once you become dependent on a substance to get along every day without it. I know from experience, my dad had a major alcohol problem. When he would stop drinking, he'd get the shakes. It'd be very hard for him just to be able to get through the day.
Yep.
And alcohol is not the only drug that can cause that kind of issue for people. But when it comes to InfoSec, I think alcohol is just more accepted. And even like as Sledge said before, let's go have a beer. I mean, it's built into the culture, and not that it needs to be separated from it, mind you, but all things in abundance. And sometimes
all things in moderation, please, not abundance.
No, abundance. No, we got to drink all the things, hack all the things.
Yes, that's right.
All the booze.
Moderation.
Moderation is what I meant to say, but I said the opposite. So
all things in moderation.
I'll put out there.
Thinking the opposite.
So our industry also has a lot of neurodivergence, and a lot of that for a long time was treated with stimulants as well. So stimulants in this industry also tend to be a big problem, right?
I don't even fuck with that, man.
I have experience with everything.
I have a prescription. Shut up. It's fine.
I have a prescription. It makes it legal to take essentially over-the-counter meth.
I had a friend, who basically he went through this whole thing. So they cut off all the supply of, they were trying to cut off opioids, right? But they also shut off the supply of Adderall, which had been a requirement for this.
Oh, I remember that
for 15 years, and so he went almost a year without medication, and that really, ultimately cost him the job that he was at. And so there are folks in this industry that deal with that type of stress by reaching out in that direction instead of the depressants direction. So.
Yeah, it's like,
I
dude,
used to
I
be
broke my foot, right? And the doctor prescribed me a bunch of oxys, and I'm like, I don't want that, so I'm not going to go fill that script. I've lost so many people to opioids. It's like, no, thank you.
I was on 60 milligrams of Adderall and 200 milligrams of modafinil. On top of, I had a bunch of other shit prescribed, but those were my uppers for that stack.
So that's actually a pretty good stack. Modafinil. Well, I mean good, not in the actually good, but if you want to actually
60 mils of Adderall is max. You can't get prescribed anymore.
Yeah, it's over the pandemic. There were some issues with prescribing Adderall via a lot of these remote online pharmacies where you could just kind of ask for it, not have to go see a doctor and get it prescribed to you. And then they really cracked down once the pandemic was over. And now it's a lot more difficult to get the drugs that you need. I know there was also a shortage of Adderall for a while, which even if you had a prescription, made it very hard to get it. And
I had already taken myself off of them way before any of all this shit happened. So this was 2017 to probably 2019, that span. I was rocking that prescription hard as fuck.
Yeah.
That medical thing where you could just call in and do the teledoc, they were even doing that with Xanax. And I had a friend OD in my house and we had to revive her. It was freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I remember that.
I was prescribed 6 milligrams of Klonopin on top of those were my uppers. So then I had 6 milligrams of Klonopin.
Zombie cocktail right there.
And then I had what else did I fucking have? I had all the dope, man. I had it all.
So we were talking about people being assholes back in the day, and an hour ago, and that was one of the things that caused me to be a super asshole. Was from third grade on to college, I was taught the way to get your job done well, the way you want to, is to sit down, shut up, and take your speed. Right. And so my brain has this trigger where it's like, oh, cool, we're going to go into IR. We should seek uppers. And I've had to really work hard to unwind that and say, that's a trauma response I'm going through. And let me back that one up and say to my team lead, hey, man, this one, I need to sit out for the first, go around on this. I'll catch shift 2.
Self-reflection is good. Mm-hmm. I've got a friend that, the mood swings are insane. I can tell when he's taking his Adderall or not. It's crazy, the stark difference.
Yep. But, eventually you have to learn how to do all that shit without the drugs.
Yeah. Yep.
Raw dogging reality is what I like to call it. Some days it's
I not recommend 0
harder
stars.
than others.
I went
0 stars, man.
Adulthood's the worst hood I've ever grown up in.
I like that.
That is good.
Crowd strong. Put that on your list.
Yeah, that's absolutely going on the list.
Adulthood is the worst hood I've ever grown. Yeah, no, it checks.
But I don't drink.
Let's give the floor to Cameron for a second. You haven't introduced yourself.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, my name's Cameron. I'm the senior pen tester for some boutique consultancy. I don't know. I've been in the industry for a long time. I have serious mental health issues that I've overcome, and some I deal with today. And substance abuse has been something that I've definitely partaken in. So things to know about Cameron. I wear glasses. I have permanent double vision. That's a result of an ATV accident, all-terrain vehicle.
Well, at
That
least you had
belonged
fun
to
getting an injury.
that belonged to a police officer.
Oh,
I took I took the vehicle from the police officer and I totaled it. I was life flighted to the University of Cincinnati, where my tox report came back at a 0.86. There's no zeros. That's 3 times
Jesus.
the best rate. I was supposed to die from the alcohol alone. So yeah, I've had some serious issues with alcohol. I used to binge drink. I never experienced the DTs. That's where the guy's talking about when you quit drinking and you get the shakes. I never had that. I was always a binge drinker, right? I was so upset with reality that I couldn't handle it. I needed to go into another dimension, so I would drink. And I've done some
The disassociation.
Horrific shit. It's not disassociation, it's complete blackout. You're just gone. I've woken up underneath vehicles before. I've woken up in somebody's driveway while driving, and I'm like, "How the fuck did I get here?" I've woken up to EMTs. I've gotten out of a fucking DUI before. I've got a driver's license picture where I'm fucked up in that. I'm drunk in that driver's license picture. Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate you sharing with us everything that that's some serious stuff, and I appreciate it, man. I've been there on a lot of that journey myself, so
there's a reason that a person gets pushed to that extent, and that's the thing that the person has to overcome to get over their issue of substance use, because substances are a solution, right? That they're a solution to a problem. Where is the problem? The problem is the person itself, right? There is something that they're trying to cover up with a substance.
So Cameron told his story. Let me tell you my story. So in college, I got put in a dorm room right next to the wall. My bed was literally against the wall where the kitchen was. So I'd hear parties and door slamming all night, and I couldn't sleep. So I turned 21 that year, so I was like, oh, I can afford some beer. And I just started drinking every night, watching Futurama, and just to pass out and ignore the noise. And when I finally moved out, that's when I realized physical addiction was a thing, because I had my first seizure, like shaking, had a panic attack, passed on the floor, called the medics, everything like that. And I was like, I wake up in the hospital and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, I have no idea. And that's where I learned about alcohol withdrawal syndrome. And that's kind of what I've been trying to wean myself off with for the last few years. But I'm making great progress.
So Sledge and I have actually had this conversation in person. There was a time where it was, I can confirm he has worked his way down the chain, if you will, but he can absolutely confirm that we've had that. I've had that. I'm very concerned about you conversation about how that worked. So
yeah, I do not touch liquor anymore. Won't even.
Good.
Not even.
Good.
And number one,
I hadn't seen you in a while, but absolutely have had that conversation.
These are the type of relationships, right? That if you find yourself at DEF CON and maybe traveling down that road, have this conversation with somebody, right? There are people there that got your back, that have been through this, and will open up and share their stories. So maybe you don't have to get there. I too found myself waking up in a facility with DTs after I had scaled a tree in the front of their facility and had to be taken down by security. So I don't remember most of that. That was all told to me afterwards, right? So yeah, today, man, is a hell of a lot better day than that, man. But getting through that it's a slug, right? And as Cameron said, man, finding that thing that's typically for me, it's very related to the reason I do this job in the first place. And I have to be able to determine that fine line of am I going too far into this, right? Is that triggering that trauma, or is that helping me address that trauma in the way that I feel is best for me?
So in my case, just to elaborate a little bit, I've never done anything super dumb
Except
while
for
drunk or
Excel.
anything. Sometimes I'll like say something that I'll regret. That's about the extent of that. But what ended up happening though is like over time, you can't, even the doctor straight up told me you can't cold turkey. So I have to keep a tally of like how many beers, try to knock it down by half or one a week or whatever, but you cannot cold turkey. And I tried rehab and they give you this low dose Xanax stuff if you're doing it outpatient. And that actually worked pretty well for the DTs. But the biggest problem I had was I was seeing my parents for Christmas 2 years ago, and I was at the hotel bar, and I had 2 margaritas or something, and I just couldn't sleep. So I was staying up all day, whatever, drove 4 hours down to the other side of Colorado. And as soon as I get to my parents' house, I'm like, guys, I've felt this before. We need to go to the emergency room. And as soon as I get to the desk and I'm filling out the paperwork, I crashed and they had to pull out the crash cart. And the doctor said I was dead for like 40 seconds. That was like the biggest turning moment of my life. Like I'm not touching liquor again.
When you care about your bros, sometimes it's okay to have those hard conversations. Again, like with Sledge, we've been friends for years, and he could be mad at me, or he could have wanted to stop being my friend. And I've had people do that. But like when you care about your friends, when you want to see your well or exist for a little longer, have those hard conversations. Don't be afraid of them. It's important.
Yeah, 100%. Well said.
GM friends, as we say in cryptocurrency world.
Hey, it's Drew. Welcome.
Yeah.
What's up?
Thanks for the invite. I am, I guess, on this topic, 5.5 years sober.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's was much needed. I think there for a while. I don't know how it got big. Are y'all still there?
Yes, we're still here.
Okay. Yeah, it was much needed. It was kind of became just a crutch. And as I was going through divorce, I didn't want to lean on it anymore. So, but also, I guess in addition to that, I have bipolar type 1 and more seasonal bipolar, where I get more active in the summer. So, I guess with the topic, substances, especially alcohol and wet brain, as they call it now, as they're kind of describing it a lot more, is something just to stay away from completely for somebody who has a diagnosis like I do. And it does interfere with medicine usage as well. So, so that just kind of hopping in and kind of opening up a little bit.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us, Drew.
Can I make a one comment and get some feedback on it? Right, I'm twice divorced, and luckily, as a result of some of my behavior, it was, I don't have the option to do some of my side dishes that I used to because I get tested for that, and that's good for me, right? But I got to that point, and I hear like divorce is common for a lot of us.
Yeah.
What are some of the resources that people can share with their SOs or significant others, right? To say, here's the type of work I do. Here's the type of things that like may crop out. I didn't know to explain to my ex-wives. I freak out every day because I'm essentially like fighting fires. I walk into this building, everything's on fire, right? I'm the only one that sees that stuff because of my experiences. I didn't have the words to tell them that, and they didn't have, therefore, like even the indication. They just saw this like raving drunk lunatic, right? Fully understand their perspective today, but I wish I'd been able to say, you know what? I have repetitive PTSD from my job, and I don't know how to explain that to you or how to get help for that.
Before we address that, let me address what Drew was saying. I want to kind of piggyback on that and say sometimes, let's say alcohol, for instance, in my case, it wasn't like a crutch or a vice for anything. I just have a hard time sleeping. And alcohol was the solution. And in my journey of trying to figure out a better way to sleep, I saw a sleep doctor for 3 years, tried every drug under the sun, and Ambien is what really fucked me up. That landed me in jail. That was fun. I went to bed with a hankering for beef jerky and woke up in a prison cell. I was like, what the hell is going on? But anyways, back to Dataplex's point. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, Drew. Thanks everybody for sharing. And yeah, this actually gives me a bit of the chutzpah to tell my experience over the last I would say about a year ago. I started hitting the sauce pretty heavy, and it got me goofy. It didn't help with anything in my life, professionally or personally. The wife gave me the old 3 strikes and you're out. But thankfully on that third one, I hit I bunted and I'm on first base, so hopefully that works out. But anyway,
good deal.
I wish I had a happier ending for it, because the way I kicked booze is I replaced it with a much more horrible thing of nitrous oxide, and I'm just I ended up causing nerve damage where I couldn't feel anything in my feet or legs for a couple months. I was essentially bedridden. I couldn't even feel my mouse or type or type anything. Like, forget typing complicated passwords, but it sucks to not do what you love. So I just had to sit around and wait. And
I
thank
didn't
God.
realize nitrous could do that.
Neither did I.
Yeah,
until it did.
It's pretty big wrecking your brain stuff.
It killed a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Damn.
Yeah, he had like a embolism or something.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I mean, on the upside, like, I don't drink. I don't even smoke tobacco anymore. It completely killed every addiction I have. But even to this moment, like, I would crave. I crave some of that sweet funny gas, but I know it's no good.
Mm-hmm.
It's
good that
honestly,
you're able to understand that it's not good for you and make changes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My first drug was hacking. Way back as a teenager, man.
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
no joke, dude. I would not eat, sleep. I wouldn't go to the restroom, dude. I was sitting there and I watched it break people's minds, right? When you turn clipping off on society and the rules, you disconnect from all the things that moor you back into that civilization. I think it was a big part of like, wait a minute, that's not what's supposed to happen, right? And it is very.
You remember that hackers? I forget the name of it, like exploitation or hackers or something. The black with orange text on the front.
Yeah, hacking the art of exploitation. I have a copy of that in the other room.
That one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. When I was little, I was reading that in the bathtub.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 2600 magazine, The Hacker Crackdown, Secrets of a Super Hacker, The Cuckoo's Egg. Those were the books I would try to stack up my shelves.
Smashing the stack for fun and profit, man.
Smashing the stack for fun and profit by Aphelios Magnate, or however it was pronounced.
I really liked Jason Street's 2 books, The Forbidden Network and The Verboten Network. The story of those 2 kids going through and explaining how the stuff work.
I haven't, the social engineering guy?
Yeah, he wrote 2 books on hacking. He
presented at my conference at Hack Miami. Okay, cool. I didn't know he published those books. I got to check that out.
Wait. You said your conference, Hack Miami.
Yes. I'm the co-founder.
No shit.
I'm the co-founder of Hack Miami along with Rod Soto and James Ball.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. That's sick, dude.
Awesome. Thanks.
Jake and I are actually going to be at the same conference later this month, the Counterparty.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be
in
fun.
Miami.
I'll be speaking there as well.
Oh, really, Drew? We got to hang out, man.
All right.
Excellent.
I look forward to it. I live in Miami.
Maybe I can make it.
Put a drive down.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. But yeah, I'm a co-founder of that, and the next one's in May. And yeah, everyone on the panel here has a standing invite, so just hit me up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Man. So y'all want to wrap this and maybe hit some of the InfoSec news? It's been a wild and out week out there.
Yeah, let's just spend another 5 to 10 minutes to wrap it up cleanly.
Yeah,
and then we'll move on to InfoSec news. All right.
I appreciate everybody jumping on, sharing, and jumping into this topic, man. It is really refreshing to see this many people like sharing and dedicated to the people in the community and what we go through, man. Hell yeah,
man. And it makes me feel better too. Like I'm appreciative that I can talk about my experiences, but also that I'm not the only one that's gone through them. As much as I hate that other people have, it's not.
It's cool having all these random people join us, and B, Drew has something to say.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't know how to raise my hand on here the proper way. Something that I've gone to, I started 9 months ago by my psychiatrist, recommended I go ketogenic, and then switched over about 3 months ago the carnivore diet. And just when your brain's running off ketones, it's a whole lot more stable throughout the day and throughout the year than running on blood sugar, where you get the peaks and the valleys and the dips throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I've found that's been extremely helpful for me. And then I've kind of just embraced it. I like eating ribeye every night, and butter, heavy whipping cream, kind of.
Yeah. So that's interesting because my ex-wife went on a straight keto diet, and it really fucked with her thyroid, which affected all of her emotions and like everything, her hormones.
Yep.
Keto, if you use a lot of plants, will mess with you. Because if you're kind of high on the plant side, and that's what the argument for the carnivore is stay high fat, but have it be animal fat.
Yeah, the carnivore diet's awesome. I watched Jordan Peterson's daughter do it, and like, holy shit!
The stricter version. She's Lion's diet, which is like a just rheumatoids, and so I've been messing around with that some, but I can't stick to that as tight.
For stuff like that, you have to make sure that you keep your vitamins up, because you don't get everything you need. So that's actually something that I'm studying now, because I'd like to do it.
I disagree. Your body absorbs a lot more vitamins without plants in your system.
So are you saying it's good or bad? I'm trying to follow.
You should probably do major dietary changes with the assistance of somebody who's a professional in that area, right? My girlfriend is diabetic, and she uses a keto diet to keep her diabetes under control, which helps with the mood swings and other like mental challenges that diabetes introduces that look a lot like some of the things that we struggle with stress-related things. So, but yeah, any of those because I tried a keto diet, I caused myself diverticulitis, almost died. So that was but it was, with bad advice on the internet, which there is aplenty.
We're glad you're still here.
Yeah.
I've done keto, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And when I could afford it, because I was employed, I was able to reduce a lot of my medication under, guidance of an actual doctor. It was great for me, but I've also had friends do it, and it just wrecked their health. So, always professional. Always.
Yeah,
seriously.
It's hit and miss. It depends on the person.
Yep.
Yeah. And it seems to be almost random what person it depends on. Because, it was another lady about my size, about my age, similar background, that had severe health complications. Well, I'm just here like, okay, I'm confused now because I was fine. I don't see a difference. But I'm also not a doctor.
Yep. It was actually fun because when we were trying to do the keto thing, I like to cook. Gets me away from the computer. So we ended up trying to figure out, well, let me backtrack and say one of my friends is an actual Michelin star chef, and he would come over and we'd just like screw around with recipes and try to figure out how could we make this keto friendly and just mess with stuff. And we ended up writing a cookbook. It was pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Oh, nice. Do you have that published anywhere? Like is it on GitHub anywhere?
Whoever was just talking, was that a...
Oh, sorry, yeah, I was saying the cookbook. Is the cookbook on GitHub or something? Or is it just like traded on index cards, 1950 style?
Yeah, it's a GitHub.
Shoot a link, man. What are you doing?
Yeah,
If I can find it.
Share the link. Excellent. So if you guys want, we can move on to the security articles for this week, or you guys can keep going here. I need feedback. What do you guys want to do?
All right, last thing I gotta say is careful with nitrous. It'll kill your nerves, and then you become a temporary quadriplegic, and it really sucks.
Noted.
Thank you.
And to
Move on.
Be careful with corn syrup. Stay away.
Yeah. Especially the high fructose.
All right. So
All
let's
right, move
go
on.
to-
I got to take a pee real quick.
All right. I'll run everything then, all by myself.
The loneliest number.
Making me feel bad.
So we got This Week in Security. Zach Whitaker puts out this newsletter every week. He does a great job. Unfortunately, he's been leaking to 404 Media a lot, and they're paywalled, so we can't read some of these articles. But hackers claim what? I know. I got to start paying for it, honestly. But they do a good job. They do a good job.
404 does actually run a pretty tight journalistic crew there.
Yeah, they do a good job. I don't have money. So hackers claim massive breach of location data with Gravy Analytics. So this one's scary, right? A lot of your Android apps, they also iOS, they're participating in this network called Gravy Analytics. And they have an auction house that they got going with this thing too, where they're essentially auctioning off your location data to the highest bidder. And due to the way the real-time bidding process works, there's a process that exploits the ad industry to power the surveillance industry. So while ad blockers are your friend, there are still thousands of apps, very popular ones like Tinder, Candy Crush. They're using these little bits of code to display ads in their apps that had the side effect of letting these ad brokers listen in and acquire your real-time location data. The apps themselves might not explicitly even know themselves. They're just participating in an ad network. The data is extremely trackable, and it's a privacy nightmare. Forbes took a look at the hacked data, and it's scary, man. Gravy, except for a brief notification from Norwegian media, because the law there does not require a breach notification. Oh, it does require breach notification. I misread that. And they were breached themselves. So this company that is stealing your location data through advertising networks and auctioning it off to the highest bidder was themselves hacked, meaning the location data of a lot of people is out there, and that's historic location data. So now, in addition to, they only released like a fraction of it, as most ransomware actors will. But if the whole thing gets leaked, that's pretty scary. It's probably just as bad as national public data breach. So
I would say maybe worse, right? Because this goes straight into blackmail and location-based blackmail, like things that if you're in this location, there's really not much else you're doing there.
And even if they don't release it, the person who buys it, eventually they use it up, they get bored, they trade it, and then it's just a matter of time before that's circulating publicly on the forums.
Mm-hmm. It's accurate. The data, once it's out there, even if you pay the ransom and they agree not to leak the rest of it, that's just sitting on some hacker's hard drive somewhere. It's not like they're really going to delete it, even though they say that they will. They probably share it amongst some friends, and eventually it might even still get
I
leaked.
wouldn't. I'm just thinking, if it was me, I wouldn't erase it.
Right.
And you remember, right? These groups tend to also turn on themselves pretty often, right? So the original taker of that data may be themselves compromised, right?
You're also dealing with the whole ecosystem of initial access brokers. So the person who actually got into your network and breached it might not be the person who then deployed the ransomware and did the data exfiltration. And then after you pay that person, they might resell that data to somebody else. They might resell the access to somebody else. And then you get breached all over again. And another group comes and wants money.
So,
go ahead.
I want to maybe fast forward.
Keeps turning.
Yeah, well, I want to fast forward to another article, which if you could pull up, which is the White House announcement about the the trusted compute device or whatever.
Yep. Their seal of approval there.
Yeah, cyber trust mark. Yeah, right.
Yep.
So is this I see is like potentially part of the answer, right? Okay, so your devices that were part of this attack, right? If they go through this program, what are we saying here about trust and privacy and data, right? Are you gonna, right? Essentially, an industry starter label. Like, are you going to commit to protecting the privacy of that data, or are you still abusing this data? You just get to put a little like label on your thing.
Well, I mean, my question would be like, who watches The Watchmen, right? What is the actual benchmark here? Can I pay for it? Can it just be something that we throw on stuff to say, hey, this is better because we have some kind of deal with the government? Or worse than that, can we just throw it on whatever, like FDA approval, and
And will the government mandate that these devices that they're saying are secure also utilize what they call responsibly managed encryption?
Yep. So these are all kind of answers. I think that man, honestly, I put it back on the hacker community here to say we broke this first. We should be the ones leading the charge on how to fix this, both from a legislative standpoint and from a devices and a stack standpoint, right? So like the OSI stack, I think it should be 14 layers with a layer of security between each one of the layers now. Let's go ahead and update that model and say, yeah, this is a problem, right? Once we get the location data, or we could go the other direction and say, you know what? We're okay with all the data being stolen. You shouldn't be places you're not supposed to be. I don't like that answer myself.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
So it seems that UL Solutions, I believe that's Underwriters Laboratories. I remember them from when I was going for the electrician apprentice license. They were the ones who certified certain things like lamps and like light sockets, right?
Sure.
The logos on everything.
And these are the same people who have been tapped to be the lead administrator for this program, as well as 10 other firms that have been selected. And it's been in development for months, apparently, and long awaited since the White House began signaling its release last year. Major companies, Amazon and Best Buy, are going to help educate consumers on where to find the label on the device, it seems, from the Deputy NSA Director for Cybersecurity, Emerging Technology, Ann Neuberger. This
where it says TP-Link, I think, right? Is that
I don't see TP-Link, but
no.
The .gov link is sitting in our on your signal.
Going to grab it now.
That may be a little bit more.
Yep, pulling it up now.
So I think, just discussing this, like in the Gravy Analytics data breach, like at some point, either the U.S. has to. Okay, so here's the challenge, right? To stop the data analytics train is effectively being equated to like killing the growth industry, right? Dynamic of tech. There's not much else to take out of it if you're not doing tangible goods with.
In terms of the breach, I don't think that's the same thing, right? These are for like actual like systems, like phones or routers or whatever, where your Gravy Analytics got popped because analytics platforms.
Well, but
it's like advertising network versus.
But here's the thing: you're talking about a phone that communicated that data to the ad network over an app channel that they allowed to exist on the phone. Like they shouldn't be certified.
Sure, but this device, you can't certify a phone if you've got 7,000 apps, 7 million apps that
I'd like to challenge that.
There, right? But that
I
data
would like to see them try before not, right? I agree with you that right now it's not a tenable solution. Like it's just not something that's going to be achievable. I think it should be part of the discussion of like that's where we want to be.
Sure. Yeah. I'm here for that. But
So,
I think in this specific where we're at right now, this is just talking about devices, not necessarily the data after the fact. Just like I can't, pivot off of a light bulb or a fish tank and hack a thermometer and a fish tank and hack MGM.
I have pivoted off of a light bulb, just to let you know, and it was fun.
Pivoted off the power socket, yeah.
So like it's something like that, right? I think that's what this
it's for IoT devices. Let's just say that. So anything that falls under that IoT umbrella or Internet of Shit, as we like to call it, whether it be your smart ice tray or your home router. These are all IoT devices as far as this kind of thing is concerned.
Your
this
fridge
bill.
that connects to the internet for no reason.
Look at for that first sentence there, right? Have many smart wireless interconnect devices in their homes, from baby monitors to home security cameras to voice-activated assistants. That's my phone. You just described my phone in its entirety, right? Except
don't
with an
think
app platform.
phones are going to be included in this just because of the ecosystem, like was mentioned before, because you're dealing with a lot of third-party apps, and even if you have a Google Play Store or an iOS store or whatever freaking app store you've got, things can sneak in there, and it's not like they're going to then decertify the device because one malicious app snuck into the store.
Yeah, but the thing is, like the app on that IP camera communicates through my phone to Gravy Analytics, right? That's my problem with it. Is like this is a half-baked solution that doesn't fully understand the extent of the domain of the problem.
I agree, but it's probably a good start, at least into the foray of getting some of these really incredibly insecure, oftentimes intentionally backdoor devices off of home networks. Like the government, for instance, won't allow certain devices onto government networks like a Hikvision camera because those are backdoored to hell. Huawei routers, same company that makes the shitty Walmart phones and used to make the some pretty decent Google branded phones for a while, actually. That company, since they've been backdooring their stuff, the government's like, nope, you guys cannot have your stuff on our networks. I think for the consumer market, this is a nice parallel to that, and at least a good start.
I just bought a Huawei thin 16-inch monitor on Amazon. It's on sale. It's actually a good deal, right? Yeah, 100%. Like I expect it to have backdoor chips in it. It's just like.
I was just going to add in that just because the U.S. government isn't have regulations banning the use of it doesn't necessarily mean all of their contractors or those contractors subcontractors or those contractors subcontractors have those regulations. And it's just a matter of accessing one network that has the right VPN connection to be able to get the goods.
It's like the HVAC system that caused the Home Depot breach because the vendor put a device on the network.
Yep.
And I can see them doing stuff like putting one version of the product through this process and using the, and this gets into the fraudulent BBB area, Better Business Bureau, right? But like basically using that picture of that device with this logo on it, but selling version B, right? That they didn't run through this process.
And we can be pretty rest assured that any vulnerable residential device will eventually make its way into an enterprise environment, be it from an IT department who just says, let's buy some of these, or people bringing gear from home because they want to do something, regardless of what that is. Point is, residential vulnerable stuff is going to end up in even the most secured of enterprise networks. I believe we call it shadow IT or rogue IT or something like that.
You should be implementing 802.1x and whitelisting devices, at least by Mac, onto your network as a very basic precaution against that from happening.
So I like that this doesn't mention any of that, right? That should be some of the stuff that would go in terms of that educational information.
Agreed. So that was a good first article for sure. Well, first and second at this point. Now we have a few others to cover. So we covered the Gravy Analytics breach. Power School hack exposes K through 12 students and teachers' personal data. So you guys know with the whole COVID thing, a lot of these educational platforms got rushed into production. A lot of them were not necessarily ready for primetime use, and they got instantly deployed. Take it from here, guys.
What Hulk Hogan thing?
The sex tape?
What?
Wait, there was
the Hulk Hogan sex tape.
Quack, quack.
You said the Hulk Hogan thing. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Does it say what type of information? Social security numbers, PII, names, addresses. Oh, shit. Yeah, that's not good.
So this is where you actually start needing to give advice like freeze the credit of your children who are adolescent and going into adult years. They're primed up for identity theft, credit theft, mortgage theft, all
Get
kinds
used to it, guys.
Social security numbers already circulating.
Yeah, and actually you should be running credit reports on your kids. If they have credit building before you have them a bank account, you need to start doing remediation work.
But you should have your credit locked long before until you need to use it.
But your children, so people's kids, they need to start locking their kids' credit down as well.
Yeah, that data's out there.
See,
for sure.
Yep.
That is something I haven't really heard much of. Monitoring your kids' credit. That's not a bad idea.
So there's definitely indicators right now of like 16 to 20-year-olds being targeted where they're building like opening credit cards and establishing credit for these people because they have no idea that they need to be monitoring.
Yep. I can tell you I'm actually the victim of fraud. Somebody got my information and opened up a Verizon account last year, and I had done something, and I had unlocked my credit, and I totally forgot to lock it back, and I'll be absolutely damned if somebody didn't get me. So like that data's out there.
I had somebody take over my Verizon account from an apartment I used to live in and pretend to be me, and then not return it years after, and they screwed me over pretty good on my credit report there.
I was talking about this in the chat. Somebody did a SIM hijack thing with me. They ported over my phone number to a new SIM card, took over all my two-factor shit, and basically got into my bank account and everything. So I had to go through and redo freaking everything.
You go find your info on Telegram for $2.15.
Yeah, my friend Mike from the Vegas Crypto Group, he was on a podcast live when they decided to SIM jack him. And all of a sudden, as he's on this podcast, every single one of his accounts, one after the other, started getting breached. And he then lost access to his email. And then eventually he got kicked off the cast as his phone then lost service completely and his internet got shut off.
Oh, man.
Freaking nuts.
Wild.
Yeah, I believe T-Mobile got sued for that because you can put a PIN on port or a phone number forwarding, but it's opt-in only.
Yeah,
it should be default.
There was that was mentioned in the Darknet Diaries episode where he's interviewing the kid who essentially was doing sim jacking and video game stuff, and that kid kind of walks through how they even had a ring of people who would jack the tablets from T-Mobile stores, and then they knew they only had access to it for maybe 30 minutes at most until the person could call in themselves and get it revoked. And in that time, they could do as many SIM swaps as they could.
Yeah,
it's insane. That's all industry.
And it's any wonder why our industry has mental health issues. a ghost stole my customer's data. What are you supposed to do with that?
It's insane. So this article goes into how Power SIS is a student information system. It's used to manage student records, grades, attendance, enrollment, and they have your main point of contact for your school district. So essentially, if you're going to school nowadays, this is what's replacing.
They changed their grades for the finals.
All right, so here's like, let's go down to I'm gonna go say fear paths. Right, number one, this is used for identity theft, straight up. Right. Okay, so that, like, as a young kid, it's going to be annoying, right? And it's honestly like a loss of trust and safety, right, in your society, which is pretty bad. Okay, but I think that's recoverable. The one that's much darker is, like, let's say that's used to evaluate their capabilities in the workforce or for insurance purposes, right? That's where I'm really afraid this data is going, that people don't understand the long-term ramifications.
Could you go into more detail with that? What do you mean by that exactly?
Let's say that based on analysis of grades that are stolen in this data and attendance records, right, you can determine that somebody is going to have a better likelihood of showing up to work on time.
Like use it as a variable.
This person's going to work at this defense contractor because they're good at certain maths.
And then when they get your background check, they get a copy of this data breach and they see, oh, you skipped school 30 times in your senior year.
So they know to, like, ignore that person or not.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Well, it'd be used to filter out or filter in, depending on the use case of the data and the data available, right?
So the lesson is, kids, the hackers are getting it. So kids, skip school all you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys could use it as a variable for the decision-making process for any of that stuff.
And that's where I'm worried that, like, I want to see the data that, like, is
breached.
Obviously, somebody's buying this, right? But it's being put into systems.
Right.
What are those algorithms doing? And like, is there a way to basically track that back in there?
It looks like a lot of different school districts all across the country were part of this breach. We have pretty much all of Alabama, and then we have.
Can we look at Florida?
We can go down the list and see if there's enough. Yeah.
Wow.
Sort of a handful in every state.
Right there, what you scrolled through is hundreds of thousands of kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that has the social security number. Like people just sitting on that waiting for the number. Like unlike credit card numbers, they expire as time goes on. Social security numbers just age like fine wine.
Mm-hmm. Another scary thing is it said addresses.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Name, address, social security number, all that fun, juicy data in the hands of a bad guy. Especially when you've
people
got
in the wood chipper.
People looking to build aged accounts for bypassing KYC and all sorts of other things that can really damage somebody's credit score as well as really screw up their future. It's
on
not
the
good.
Upside, they'll be 18, so by 26, their credit will be clean again.
That's, I guess, an upside, assuming that. I guess they don't take out any loans they can't be discharged, but it's still going to really screw them up when they.
Hey, if these numbers have been circulating in the right place, nobody's giving them a loan.
So in threat attribution news, Japan has linked a Chinese threat actor called Mindface to dozens of cyber attacks on the Japanese government tech companies. We also know that Salt Typhoon has hacked many U.S.-based companies. China. Hackers have targeted the Treasury's CFIUS office in a December data breach. Speaking of China, this is also Salt Typhoon here.
Yeah, so what that was a big acronym. That was more than 3 letters.
I'm not sure what CFIUS is.
So let's open the article and find out what is CFIUS.
Something.
U.S. government office that assesses foreign investment for national security risks.
Oh, wow.
Good. Glad we're here.
God, Committee on Foreign Investments in the U.S.
That's working great.
That's great.
Committee of Foreign Investment in the U.S.
Yep.
So bankrupt your enemy by bankrupting their backers.
They're going after TikTok first. It's fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Rest in peace, TikTok.
Yeah, I don't believe that's actually going to get banned. Or
it probably won't. But
that would be a good time to maybe invest in a VPN.
The absolutely wildest thing is everybody's moving to a Chinese app called Red. What the hell's it called? Red. Hold on.
Dead Redemption.
Something.
Yeah.
RED or READ?
No, it's Red. Red Note is what they're going. Literally a Chinese app. If you look it up. And it is the scariest thing I've seen. And TikTok is flooded with people just like, go to Red Note, go to Red Note, go to
Red Note.
Yeah.
Give us
around people.
The QRD. What's a quick rundown?
Wild.
So
it's kind of like the Exodus from X to Blue Sky.
Yep. But
all right.
Supposedly Red Note is the Chinese TikTok, which is
what? Like the real Chinese TikTok?
Yeah, like I thought the Chinese TikTok itself was supposed to have mostly educational content.
This is 2025.
If you Google Red Note, all it is Chinese characters. There are tutorials on how to make it in English. That should tell you what you need to have.
Okay.
It is wild. The lack of care that people have with their data, though. Not saying that TikTok was perfect, but that's
welcome to the internet.
Insane.
Well, it goes to an education issue again, right? Like if the people don't understand the ramifications of this stuff and like what that will be used for in due time, then they're not necessarily going to know to protect themselves, right? They're not going to walk towards some guy with a machete running at them. That's suicidal, right? But you might walk into a Red Note application and just think, man, my friends are on there, right? Or people that I want to follow. But how much of that is real and how much of that is the next gravy analytics, you know?
Well, sometimes this comes down to that point of like, until you actually feel the pain of it, you don't realize how real it is. So sometimes it takes getting your bank account or something popped, or like it actually comes to fruition to where you understand what it is.
And that's a fair
or the
assessment.
implications of it.
That's a good way of putting it, I would argue. So the next article that we've got is Avanti has another VPN bug, and this time also being exploited in the wild, just like last time. This one is 2025-0282. It's in their Secure Connect VPN, which is ironically named after all these vulnerabilities with it recently.
Client side or local? What's the port? Hold on, let me pull up the exploit.
When are we going?
Anyone got a list of IP addresses? Let's go. All right, this is now a mass hacking
right
show.
now.
Bug bounty on live. Let's go.
So
who has the Monero mining payload? Anyone has the Monero mining payload? Hit me up on Jabber.
that would be XM rig, and just anyway. Okay, so this one is security advisory, Advanti, yada yada yada. Patches available. Stack-based overflow in Avanti Connect Secure for 22.7 R25 and Avanti Policy Secure before 22 R7.7 R12.
Right, so what do I type into show then?
Nop, movie SP.
All the knobs. And also a stack-based overflow just to round it out as well. A third one. So it looks like this has been patched, but obviously threat actors
a new VPN provider, please.
Threat actors are already taking
or at least
advantage
change your
of it.
name to Insecure VPN.
It's zero trust. They finally achieved zero trust.
That's good. We finally achieved zero trust. Nobody has any trust in our products anymore.
That's good. Good joke.
That's not bad.
I'm stealing that. Like normally, I'm the pun person. Come on.
That was top notch, man. That was good.
Mark Rogers made the actual news here with. So we talked about Mark Rogers and his ongoing health issues a few weeks ago, and we still recommend anybody who can go donate to his GoFundMe because his insurance company only covered a week of recovery time from a broken neck.
Shake it up, man.
For lack of
he did.
He did.
I know.
That guy was walking around with a broken neck.
Good, I know.
So he started losing his freaking hands, like not working. And at one point, he was a quadriplegic. Luckily, he got 75% of his stuff back in terms of functionality, and now he's in the recovery phase. But unfortunately, the insurance company only is covering a week. So I think $60,000 was raised last time we looked. Let's see.
I think they hit.
Oh, they're at 101.
Hey, there
you
go.
Fucking A. Good.
Let's toss that motherfucker. Push it to 200.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
You should definitely donate to this. Mark's a great guy.
Yeah, he's done a lot for the community. For sure.
Indeed.
Yeah, he's one of the staples.
Who was he insured with? So I know not to get insured with him.
I wonder if he'd be willing to publish that information.
Insert Luigi noises here. I mean, nothing. Nope. Where is he when we need him?
Mario. No.
Corellium founders mystery pardon involved spam and fish. No, not a Monty Python skit here, but for years, reporters have been trying to figure out why Christopher Wade, the co-founder of mobile security firm Corellium, was granted a pardon by Trump on his way out of office. But yet, for some reason...
This is a big deal. Corellium? That's what a lot of freaking security firms use to test iPhone applications. Because that's the only thing that... that's the only thing that can do iPhones.
Interesting. Okay.
That's kind of a big deal.
Well, I mean, it's old news because the pardon happened 4 years ago. But this is new news where essentially we're finding out why he was granted that pardon by President Trump on his way out. And Was it to do with government contracts or a spam operation that he ran in the 2010s that was ultimately granted a legal lifeline through chance encounters over his personal fish obsession?
It's his actions, not the company.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy who, the head honcho over there who got that pardon. So let's go with more of an in-depth read of this. In 2015, Australian hacker Chris Wade got a visit from the fish doctor at his aquarium-filled Florida home. The patient was Jemmy the Gemtag, a rare saltwater species known for striking white dots, yada, 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 that cost him $3,500, was nursing an uncomfortable secret, a 2005 criminal conviction, years of quiet, compelled collaboration with federal law enforcement, and the fish's doctor was beginning a strange sequence of events that would 5 years later end in a pardon from President Trump for the legendary hacker who now runs a cybersecurity research firm he believes spared him from deportation. Saved my life. Wade, who's now 40, never shared the story publicly, but as he was speaking to Semaphore, he set the record straight after his criminal case was partially unsealed in October. His unlikely rise from an upbringing without electricity in rural Australia to a successful U.S. tech entrepreneur reads like an American success story. Yada, yada, yada. Worked here and there. Citrix, Apple, yada. Been featured in public books. This is not a PR piece. Just get to the meat and potatoes here. Declined to discuss his work with the FBI on cases which are still confidential. Looks like the TLDR on this is that he turned state's evidence and was a Fed, essentially, and ratted on people.
Lovely.
Yeah. But yeah, that was that article. Anybody have anything they want to add to that?
Soup
just got off jail
for something similar.
Next, we have voice phishing groups found abusing Apple's account confirmation prompts.
It wasn't me.
It was you, but just not this time. So, Brian Krebs is back with an important story revealing how voice phishing hackers are abusing Apple's own processes to trick unsuspecting victims into granting access to their Apple accounts. Same attack that Mark Cuban got hit with. And Cuban spoke with Krebs and explained how they did it to him to get access to his crypto wallets, which, by the way, you shouldn't be keeping in a place on your phone that's that easily accessible. Just saying.
Yeah.
All things are broken, though, right? So it just depends on the
level of broken.
Yeah, the level of broken.
Handwrite it on a note paper.
Because Cuban's actually he's pretty well versed in cybersecurity. He's done a lot of investment in the community and actually is like fairly up to date on those things as far as I can tell.
I got to bounce. My friend's dying.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah, peace, man.
I mean, he's an easy target, right? Or he's a likely target, I'll say. Maybe not easy.
Indeed. Next, we have Telegram handed over user data to the authorities. Probably has something to do with France putting the CEO in jail for a few days.
Oh, wow. They said they would never do that. Looks like they changed their mind.
It looks like they went back on that, but at least they released the transparency bot report, which isn't very transparent. Spike in government demands for Telegram user data following those months when he was imprisoned. India, Germany, and the U.S. are at the top of the requests, and it looks like they're just turning the data over now without, geez, would you people stay in the chat? It's like I gotta keep hopping between window to window. Okay. China hacks the Philippines. We're gonna skip that one.
Yep.
Niet, boom. That's the sound of Russian internet provider St. Petersburg having its digital systems obliterated in a destructive cyber attack claimed by Ukrainian hacktivists. The ISP Nodex said in a post on the Russian social media site VK, its systems were destroyed in the breach, in which hackers posted screenshots of the ISP's internal networks and backups. I mean, maybe if they had secured it better in the first place, that wouldn't have happened. But, I don't take sides. But it does look like they got breached pretty badly.
Holy shit! Yep.
We all know who the winner is.
Damn. Oh,
Get
oh.
fucked.
That's decent. That's pretty decent.
Decent. Somebody got owned.
Oh, look, this is down you go. U.S. Aviation Agency confirms a data breach. The United Nations Civil Aviation Agency, ICAO, confirms a data breach affecting 42,000 recruitment-related records stolen from the agency, affecting 12,000 people. They said names, email addresses, date of births, and employment history. So it sounds like this is probably a recruiter database. And the DNC may have had phone snooping tech. It's not like they would use the Celebrite data access, right?
Man, we're going back to Snowden days here. All right.
So newly analyzed radio wave data collected by Wired reporters walking around the DNC found there is in fact evidence the DNC has a cell site simulator, otherwise known as a femtocell for those of you out of the loop, which is a device that's going to kind of act like a stingray, intercept all the cell phones. And so about 8 years ago, there was DEF CON talk about this, where you could take an HDMI cable and an FTDI device.
You could do it with a
combine them and
a Raspberry Pi.
Right. That's just for like old school 3G, 4G, and you can only see network connect, disconnect, and SMS.
Okay.
This is like full
Does
packet
Stingray
capture.
Does Stingray work these days with the new 5G and shit?
Yes. Why do you think they implemented it? So newly analyzed radio wave data, as they're saying here, these so-called Stingray devices can intercept sensitive data from most devices in its range. The new data analysis was carried out by the EFF. Hey, look, they're actually doing something for once that's not bullshit SJW stuff. Wasn't conclusive, but all signs point to them using a Stingray.
Excellent.
So
I love the hedge.
Huh.
Let's go.
And the happy corner.
All right, so on that, right? Like who doubted that was happening in the first place, right? And because and I'm going to tie this back into the news from last week or 2 weeks ago, right? With all the telecoms being owned and our government finally, for once, saying, you know what, go hit up WhatsApp, go hit up Signal, right? Everything else is screwed. Like, I would have to assume that they knew that back when these things were discovered at the DNC, right? There's only one reason to do that in an area like that, and it's essentially blackmail and some, like taking advantage of the political situations and conversations and information that you get out of that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, look, an emotional support dumpster fire. We love that.
And a tan knit too.
This feels very alt key.
Alt key, will you make us these?
I want one so bad.
I'm gonna need a link to that.
3D print one
that knits, yeah.
3D print one. That's the answer. That's it.
I can crochet. I want one, and I want to crochet a dumpster fire.
Oh, she's feeling naughty.
Yep. You know me, I'm always feeling naughty. That's why I have such a yarn stash.
You sound far
So
away.
apparently she did this during meeting with the developers of the VLC media player at CES. That's pretty cool. I wish I had a talent like that. All I can do is pen test.
That's funny.
Amazing work from yada, yada, yada. They reverse engineered dozens of FTC privacy and security rulings over the years and identified how the investigations were put together and from what sources. This is a real public service and a huge pet peeve that the FTC has brought action against various firms, but seldom credits the people who are often reporters who then do the work that identifies the issue to begin with. The FTC and independent reverse engineering project was presented at ShmooCon. Rest in peace, ShmooCon. You'll be missed. And Sarah didn't get to make this one.
I never made a single one, and it makes me
Well,
sick.
rest in peace, as in they're not around anymore?
Yeah, man. It's gone the way of DerbyCon, and for similar reasoning.
Oh, wow. First time hearing of it. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I went there once. I only got to go to one in 2010, and it will never be forgotten. That was a good one.
Yeah, Nina from the Biohacking Village was kind enough to get me in one year, and that was a good experience. We got a cyber cat at the bottom, and that's it for this week's InfoSec review, going over all the stuff that Zach Whitaker puts out so kindly for all of us to steal the content from, and then at least we attribute it back to him.
We should have him on.
I would invite him, but I don't know anybody who knows him. I did try to invite Amanda Berlin onto this one because she runs Mental Health Hackers. I thought she'd be a great guest, but she did not get back to me on Signal. So maybe next time.
We can always do that again. Mental health is an ongoing thing, and I mean, I'd be willing to talk about it again.
I do know she just started a new job, so she's probably pretty busy, which is why she didn't get back to us.
And I'm sure I'm crazy enough. I'll get us some mental health topics for the next 30,000 years.
Man, I've already racked
do an
up
episode
about
Collectively
days of
in
that.
this room, there's infinity amount, so I think we'll be good.
It's been an amazing discussion. Thank you all so much. And wow, today was a lot of people. Obviously, big topic. Fantastic.
And we appreciate everybody who joined in. Right?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Really appreciate
And
it.
if any of you who were guests want to be guests again, just reach out to me on whatever platform we have in common.
Signal.
And Signal is where we kind of organize and meet. And
Signal or I'll roast you.
Which person is saying that? So I know which to reach out to. Sorry. Okay, gotcha.
the one you know.
Either Havoc or Sledge.
All right.
whoever's online
Okay.
at the
All right.
time.
Cool. We already. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Before we wrap out, can we take just I don't know 30 seconds of silence for the bros that we've lost, and I think that's
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, reach out before you become the next one, please.
All right. Thank you so much. And that concludes this week's episode of the CounterSurveil Podcast, clocking in at 2 hours, 31 minutes, and 15 seconds. I'd like to thank all of you who came on this week, and all of those of you who commented, and even all of those of you who are going to watch this in the replay at some point. We do appreciate you. We do not take donations, and we do not make any money off of this. If you enjoy what we do, go donate to Mark. My God, Rogers thing, because he can definitely use a few more days in rehab, and we want him back to 100%.
Yep.
Also, if you have a friend who's in need, a friend who you haven't talked to in a while, or if there's somebody you know who really could just use a friend, please reach out. Be there for your friends and your community. All we really have are each other. And at the end of the day, if you don't have friends and you don't have family, it's going to be a lot harder. So encourage you guys to maintain those relationships. And once again,
be that friend that you never had.
Exactly.
Destigmatize telling your bros you love them.
Yeah, send that send packet.
100%.
All righty. And now we are out. So I'm going to play the outro, and then we are gone. Which is here.
All right, hackers and cyber warriors, it's time to encrypt this episode and send it out into the digital ether. Thank you to Sledge, Delchi, CrowdStrong, and Altkey for another epic nerd out session. And a special thanks to our guests for joining us. And to all our listeners out there in the cyber trenches, patch fast, encrypt tight, lock down your ports, and leave no backdoor open. Hunt threats like it's open season. Keep your passwords long. Your MFA enabled. Don't use SMS as a second factor. Keep your malware signatures up to date, your critical data backed up, and your network locked down like Fort Knox. Until our next Punfest, stay vigilant, stay curious, and above all, stay counter-surveil. Whether you're pen testing networks or hardening your own defenses, remember, in the game of cybersecurity, you're either the hunter or the hunted. So sharpen those skills, mask those IPs, and we'll see you on the dark side of the net. This is CounterSurveil, where we turn paranoia into preparation, shutting down but never logging off.